Good evening, everyone. Mayamuk Kurumjari, ngasi tang kunmari May 2025 ki ngasi pung tarit tabo matam sita pwede sinjaba pagi pagi PIMSA ki series science and talk series ki makada sinjaba talk ni ngasi si kunithoi suba talk ni. So today we have among with us Dr. Thongam Bipin. He is from University of Hyderabad, and the title of his talk is "The Construction of Meiteilon in the Context of Language and Script Movement in the 28th Century." I welcome today's speaker and everyone who are there as audiences who have spared their valuable time and to listen to our speaker and to discuss on the topic so that we have some illumination on the light of the Meitei language. So before we proceed further, I would like to give some general instructions like first of all, when we have the concerned person talking, I request all the other audiences to put their mic muted so that the proceeding is not disturbed. Yeah, and the second point is if anyone is having any question in between, so you can be ready with that question, and we will be taking up the questions in the question and answer session, which will be after the talk. And anyone who wish to put their question forward, they can type their question in the chat box and send it, and I, as a moderator, will take up the questions and put forward to the speaker and any other relevant audiences who can throw light on the question. So with this, I request our President PIMSA, Oza Khaidam Ranjan Kumar Singh, to welcome the speaker and the audiences in today's talk. Over to Oza Ranjan.
Okay, thank you, Romi, Dr. Romi Tagatsari. Good evening to all, and then good evening to especially Thongam Bipin. My name, I give me Ranjan Kumar Singh. Yumnak Khaidemni. I give Horofam na Yaripo Korom. I matam sang na Queen Mumbai Delerami. I kuntra Mukiana. And that Haptam Haktangari na Kolkata relocate or is office key. Assignment kar leibadagi adu ay yam nungai ay Thongam Bipin gi topic si ay gi heart ay gi thamoy da yamna kari haitare yamna attachment leiba topic ni maramdi ay gi college ki life ta Manipuri language Meiteilon si ay schedule da chalhanbagi haukiba chhatra gi weba irang kaya da Maruina 1987, 88, 89, 91. Swagi matam cinema gi peak oigriba matam se. Tamaduda koi DM college da ai satra moina. Student leader moina kai yamna choba thodang loki. Police ki mayok ta sanction lubagi lathi charge phangki basu yam yaugi matamduda adubu adugumba awana takiba mayam mayongnakiba mayamdo kai ngasidi aikoigi imaron Meiteilon asi ai schedule da chankhra matungdagidi yamna masigi yamna kanaraba amadi masigi yamna matim leiraba asigi mathakta aikoigi milal haitare aikoigi Meiteilon gi Manipuri script pusandokiba yamna choba thonggang lokiba organization duna aikoigi ahanba aikoigi school gi level dagi horaga Manipuri script Meiteilon script Meitai mega si school sing da hapchanbadagi ngasi da aina khanbada masigi adugumba satra sing du base mathang sum pass tokibadagi aina khanbada ngasi postgraduate level phoba loikren khali masi it is a long struggle for us to include our Meitei Mayek or Manipuri in the 8th schedule of Indian Constitution. Now I think now again we have to do a lot of struggle to include our Manipuri language as a classic language because I believe, and Bipin must be knowing better than me, That is, Manipuri language has got all the credentials and credits to become uh, the one of the classical language of the India. So, ꯑꯩꯈꯣꯏꯒꯤ ꯏꯃꯥꯂꯣꯟꯁꯤ ꯀꯩꯁꯨ ꯇꯥꯕ ꯂꯩꯇꯦ. Just maybe because of some political considerations, still our language has not been counted as one of the classical language. So we have one more struggle to undergo. So I will not take much time. And Bipin, thank you very much. And just for in the lighter vein, when I saw your photo in the our flyer, I saw you seems to be very young chap with a spec and with black hair. But today when I saw you, you are also like me. Okay, it doesn't matter. So, Bipin ko, thank you very much. And dear friends, so today I'm calling from Kolkata, the city of joy. Here everybody is happy, whether it's poor or rich or whoever it is. Masa masagi pangjari khara duda dum mayam jam happily leinai Kolkata se. Though I started my career from Kolkata long back. Today Kolkata has changed a lot. And particularly this new town area is a totally different from the old Kolkata. It is a totally new Kolkata. Green, clean, no pollutions. It's fantastic. It is a fantastic place. I'm really enjoying, though I have been here for just 1 week, but I'm really enjoying here. So now I pass on the mic to Dr. Romi. So let us continue as per our schedule. Thank you.
Thank you, Azar Anjan, for your delightful welcome speech. Now, I request Dr. Melody Ketrimiu to throw a light on the bio sketch of our today's speaker. Over to Melody.
Yeah, thank you, Romy. Yeah, it's my pleasure to introduce today's speaker, Dr. Thongam Bipin. Dr. Thongam Bipin works in the areas of language, script debate, minority studies, and literary theory. He completed his PhD from the University of Hyderabad and has published widely on Meiteilon, Meitei literature, and identity. He's working on the idea of Meitei Angauba as a construct in the interface between Hindu faith and Meitei assertion in the 20th century Manipur. He has taught language policy and politics, emergent literatures, and minority discourse at the University of Hyderabad as a guest faculty. He has presented papers on Ambedkar and Nauriya Phulo, Manipur's Hindu public, Hill Valley in Manipuri literature, and Meitei movement in various national and international conferences. Currently, he is teaching at Messi Explorer Academy, Manipur. A very warm welcome to you to PIMSA Talk Series, and we are happy to have you talk on this unique topic. On a personal note, Dr. Thongam Bipin happens to be my distant cousin, and I have always admired his analytical and literary writings on Meiteilon and Sanamahi. Tamoranjan, he is young. He is my age. He is only, I think, 1 or 2 years older than me. We used to be batchmate. Yeah, thank you.
Samdu khara color sangjalo adu de na pu rani. Okay.
So thank you, Dr. Melody, for your nice introduction of our today's speaker. So now I invite, without further delay, our today's speaker, Dr. Bipin Thongam. The floor is yours, Bipin. Over to you.
Okay, all right. Am I audible?
Yes, loud and clear. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you for your generosity and the kind of introduction that I have received from Melody, and also the kind words from the President Ranjan himself. And President Ranjan has put me in a very difficult positions because he is already aware of the language politics that's happening in the last century in Manipur. And also and my positions as a speaker of today's conversations is rather more difficult because we are all the speaker of this language called Meiteilon. Because of this fact that we are a speaker of this language, We all have, whether you are an expert on on language, or even if you are not a linguist yourself, we all have a certain say. We all have a stake in the language that speak. So therefore, even if I try to make some sense of what's happening in Manipur in the last one century, which is 20th century. And I would like to start by saying that I would, miss certain points here and there. And also, my entry point to my presentation is very selective. So therefore, I also have to disappoint President Ranjan, because he must be thinking about me, that I would be speaking about a schedule, right? But then I won't be touching on this question of its schedule. Rather, I would be looking at Meitei language from a perspective where there is a challenge to the existing norms and structure and systems that sort of consolidates Meitei society. And having said that, I would like to thank the organizer and also particularly Melody for pushing me to do this. But I was very nervous initially, because when I have left academia for quite some time, although my research is in language, and also that I do not claim to know everything. This is my initial work, and then I have been trying to extend my way in some way. My presentations, in my presentation, I enter through, according to me, consider as very important. And I take three important entry points in order to talk about Meiteilon and the construction of Meitei identity, and also therefore the construction of what Meiteilon as language exists today. And those moments I will discuss in my next section. First of all, I would like to sort of give you a brief idea of what I'm going to speak in my about, say, 40 minutes long speech. The first, I divide my presentations into roughly 5 sections. The first section is generally what my Meiteilon is. Right, and in the second part of my presentation, I give you what are the three entry points that I consider important for the construction of Meiteilon as language, as against the language that I will discuss as we go further. The third section is where I explore the importance of these three moments in the history of Meiteilon. And in the fourth section, I try to understand how these three moments consolidate and also play with the identity of Meitei, and how this arrival of these three moments in the history of Meiteilon and Manipur in general was in a way an exhibition of power tussle between what was already existing as a Hindu faith and the arrival of Meitei faith as a challenge. And in last, I will give you a bit of a conclusions what we can take forward as we continue to do our research on the language. That's roughly what I'm going to sort of plan out my presentations. Now, before I go into it, I would like to first try to explain what moments is. I'll just give me 1 second. I'll share my slides. Okay, I kind of messed it up. Anyways, okay, the Hiramni taught me earlier, but I don't know where it is.
So there would be a share button in the upper right
Yeah,
corner.
I have pressed the share button. And
Then
there's
you'll see
this,
two options, screen and window.
yeah, there's a screen of Windows.
Then you select window, and there you will see this presentation slide.
Okay. It does not open.
Are you able to see your presentation slide?
Yeah, I'm trying to upload that, but it's not working. I mean, it worked earlier when I was trying.
Okay. Or can you share the screen instead of the window? if it is comfortable with you.
Screen, how
Yeah,
I'm
we are able to see. Now you just
I'm
open. You can open the presentation slide.
I'm technologically slightly
Yes,
challenged.
we are able to see it. You can put in full mode, presentation mode.
Okay. Okay. So now
Yes.
is it working now?
Yes, yes, it's working. Yes, yes.
Okay. Okay, fine. So now, for me, I'll try now first to explain what moments are. The meaning of moments are moment as a word exists in two different meanings, right? The first meaning of the word moment is temporary, right? It's not very important. It's temporary, it's transitory in nature. So therefore, it does not last long. So therefore, it's not that important as we consider as significant. However, as against this idea of temporariness of moment, there also exists something like a very important time. For example, moment also could also mean a very monumental time, a descriptive, and it also plays a very important role in defining identity. A moment also plays and affirms and inspires for what to come in the future. So therefore, when I take three moments, three particular moments, I take those moments as very important for my the identity. So therefore, in my presentations, I use moments as very important event. Right. So therefore, some of the moments that I think very important for Meiteilon and Meitei are roughly the first moment is 1930s. Can I just interrupt roughly? Can I speak without the slide, because without seeing any one of you, it doesn't make it's making me uncomfortable.
Yes.
Hello. It's to me it seems I'm speaking to a void. So I rather speak by looking at people.
But it would be best to the audiences if you saw the slide. So, so
But then,
it's
I'm speaking in an empty screen, so it doesn't. Maybe it is the one. Is it still working? Okay, it's now. Anyways, so now the three moments that I consider important for my today's presentations are: number one is the 1930s moment when there was this whole revival of nationalism in the hands of Chauba, Kamal, Irabot, Anganghal. Right. So therefore, during this 1930s moment, what we have seen is there's these evocations of Meiteilon as Imam and evocations of Meiteilon as what do you call it, Chingi Leirang, right? The flower of the hills, which is underappreciated. This is one important moment for me. And the second moment, after about 50 years, the 1978 and 79 moment, where and when the selection of Meitei Mayek was in a way, finalized. There was this long, about 1 year long expert committee meeting that was held in from 1978 to 79, and eventually, after the end of this expert committee meeting, we have the what we study as 27 scripts today. And the third moment that I entered through is the 2005 and 2006 moment. The first moment is this, and then the third moment is the reintroduction of Meitei Mayek in the schools, right? And it is important for me because it is symbolic of the return of Meitei identity in the cultural space, which is often denied to them. Now, I will come back to these three moments, but then before that, I will try to give you a very brief idea about what language study is on, and what are the important points to remember when we talk about language, particularly in the context of South Asia, India, particularly. Now, as I said in the beginning of my in the beginning of my presentations, that because we are the speaker of a language, we assume that we have a strong stake in the development, in the downfall of a language. So in some way, every speaker invests for the future of the language. And language exists as long as there are people who speak the language. And so now there are roughly languages are divided into two groups. The first one is the language with script, and the other one is language without script. And because of this pull towards the script, the pull, the desire to have a script of my own, this pull is so strong that somehow the ancestral, the primitive idea of what language is, the language without a script, have in some way have ceased to exist. So now, in a modern sense, language without script is in some way considered as a folk language, as a language which has stopped developing, as a language which has no word in that sense, if I can use the word. Scholars have used people without script or the language without script as unscripted language. For example, there are scholars like James Scott, which is very controversial in many sense, and Stuart Blackburn. Now, in the case of James Scott, who is very famous for talking about Southeast Asian communities, particularly Thailand, Burma, and the Northeast, but it says that uh, the, the the community without script is not by accident. This is his larger argument. He says this is because that they are not by accident that they do not have a script. It is by their choice that they do not have a script. What does he mean by saying this? For him, that any community which has a script, right, is fixed in time. So therefore, if you have a script, your idea of what community is, your knowledge system is all fixed in a book form. So therefore, any community who's studying your community can easily access. So therefore, in order to deny access to your community, they chose this unscripted community. They chose not to have script. So therefore, to come back to this point again, James Scott says that every unscripted community has this memory of having their own script once upon a time, but somehow they have lost it. Now, this
Bipin, sorry
yeah,
to interrupt in the peak of your talk. Is your slide moving? Because we are still stuck in the first slide.
yeah, but then this is I'm still sort of narrating here. This
Okay,
is
you're still in
this
first
is
slide.
okay. This is
Okay.
now I'm talking. Right. So now, thank you. So now, the Southeast Asian communities, particularly if you speak even in Manipur, for example, the Zaliarong communities or the Tangkhul communities, they will also tell you that they all had their own script, but then they have somehow lost the script. I was speaking to one of my friend in my university. Their mythology about having a script is that they had one script, but one cow came and then it was eaten by the cow. This is the memory. So now James Scott theorizations of this memory of having a script is that they have lost it, so that the state formation does not have access to these communities, so that they can put the state formations, so therefore the civilizations in arm's length. Now, in all of this, I'll come back to this point. What do the Meitei want? Why do we Meiteis are surrounded by unscripted community, but might they seem to have the desire to have a script of their own, and what are the implications of having a script, and what inspires them to have their own script. This is a very important point to remember, and I'll come back in my next point. So now, to put this in the context, that the desire to have a script and a language and how they are related to nation state, particularly in the South Asian countries, is very interesting. For example, the formation of India and Pakistan into two different communities is in some way not just dictated by language per se, it's also dictated by religions. In the 19th century India, the North India was in North India, Hindustani was the language that was majorly spoken. Both Muslims and the Hindus spoke the same language, which is Hindustani. The language was identified as Hindustani, but somehow in the course of time towards the end of 19th century, and particularly in the beginning of the 20th century, there was this bifurcations that's happening in the language, Hindustani. Right. During this time, Hindustani was written in two different scripts. One is in Devanagari script, which we call as the Hindi script, right? And other one is in Persian script. Just because of the fact that the same language is written in two different scripts, which is Devanagari and Persian scripts, this language began in a way to be divided into two languages, which is Urdu and Hindi. Hindustani, which is written in Persian script, was defined as Urdu, and on the other hand, Hindu, the same language, when it's written in Devanagari script, is been called or described as Hindi. And why is this important for in the Indian context? It is important because during freedom struggle movement, there was this consolidations of identities. So therefore, when we are trying to consolidate, when we're trying to sort of start a movement on the basis of language, by sidelining a particular language on the basis of the script it is on the basis of the script it is used, for example, Persian script, they can easily consolidate the Hindu vote wings by sidelining what is Muslim. So now this particular debate about of the divisions of the same language into two different languages played a crucial role in the present day politics. Now, why did the Indians, particularly the far right, if I can use a word, wanted a language, a singular language, which is written in one particular script? The explanations that many scholars give is that most of the South Asian countries mostly imitate the nation state form of the European countries. Most of the European countries, which were very, they were much older in the sense of nation state history, they all had nation states in one language. For example, England has English as a language, Germany has German as a language. So therefore, all of these European countries, most of these European countries have one language, one nation policy. So therefore, in the context of India, what we're seeing, what we're witnessing at the point of time was trying to establish India as a Hindu state, which in some way were resisted by uh, many leaders and communities. Now, but then in some way, this division of language into Urdu and Urdu and Hindi persisted even after independence. And these idea in the constitutional debate of language policy in India, when India was trying to impose Hindi as the sole national language, right? Many of these uh, states, linguistic states from the southern states, resisted the idea of having Hindi as the sole national language. So therefore, because of the resistance from the south, we have English as the associate official language. And to rectify one of the common general, very common misconception about language, scenario in India is that somehow we have agreed that Hindi is the national language of India, but nowhere in the Constitution of India it is mentioned that Hindi is the national language, right? So therefore, all the languages those are mentioned in the eighth schedule are national language, and Hindi and English are the official language. So now the resistance from the South against the Hindi imposition, which still exists today, is in a way a resistance against the homogenization of India as a nation state, is a resistance against the homogenizations of India, and to consider India as a only Hindu speaking state. So now, what happens in the context of Manipur, considering my brief explanation of what's happening in the context of language? But why is that Manipur suddenly woke up in the 1930s? Right? I'll go back to this point. In the first moment, why there was this sudden awakening of language movement in the hands of Sauber, Kamal, and Irabor, and this overwhelming desire to have a script of one's own. It is also very important to mention here that uh, that that the language and the script do not necessarily have a natural connections. Right? For example, the Meiteilon does not necessarily mean that it should be written only in Meitei script. It is because of the politics that started about a century ago that it has somehow come to us as a naturally given. For example, if I have to argue along this line, that most of the different linguistic communities of Europe all are written in Roman script. So therefore, the assumption that every language will have their own distinct script is in some way very arbitrary. But my point is not that. In the context of Southeast Asia and also in the context of Meitei, there's this whole idea of establishing that Meitei language can only be written in Meitei Mayek, which in a way I'm not at all arguing against it. I'm only saying that there is also other fact. Um, Now, to come back to this 1930s moment, right? Chauber, Kamal, and Irawan, all of this, they were together in this project. And what was the project? The project is to sort of instill the love for the language, which is Meitei. Right. For example, Chauber would have written that Meiteilon as singular mother, which is underappreciated, we never late than do other and have a and Kamal also have written all of those things, Irabot and Angang. And the problems with what is happening at the point during the 30s moment is that even though there was a strong desire to develop the language, even though there's this idea to overcome the very perception that the Meitei loan was an insufficient language to express modern vocabularies, modern ideas, scientific knowledge. There was this strong Hindu undercurrent to their assertions, which mean Chaube and Kamal. For example, if you take Nauya Fulo, which is slightly very relatively unknown as we compare to Chaube and Kamal. For Nauya Fulo, he says that Meiteis this is his word, that Meitei di sibaga mayang marun ngangi. Right. So now, for Naudio Fulo, there was a complete break away from what do we call it, the dependence on Hinduism. Whereas for Chauber and Kamal and Irabut, you find that there's this reliance or dependence on Hinduism and Sanskrit and other or Bangla for that matter for the what enhancement of Meiteilon as a language. Now, in the second moment, which I have spoken earlier, which is very crucial for me to enter into the formation of Meitei language and Meitei identity. In the 1978 and 79, there was this strong movement. There was a strong movement to have or to revive the Meitei script, which, which, which are in a way buried in the puyas, in the private homes of many of the Meiteis. So therefore, there was a strong movement to revive the script, and there was many meetings that they were held in the level of Leipa, as the word they use. So therefore, in during the time, Yangsu Saiza was the president, was the chief minister of Manipur, and then he formed an export committee meeting of different groups. And the expert committee meeting held, the expert committee members had meeting about 17 to 20 meeting. I'm not able to recollect exactly the number here. They had about 7 to 20 meetings, and there was a strong argument what should be the script. Because what was happening was that the larger argument of the experts were that in order to be accepted as a Meitei script, every script should have a source puya. Right? So therefore, without having a source puya, a script cannot claim to represent Meiteilon as a language. To remind you that during the expert committee meeting, there were about 5 to 6 different scripts which claimed that they were the original Meitei script. Now, during this moment, there was this understanding that I mean, I don't know how many are aware of the 27 letter script of Meitei Maya. This 27 script is divided into two parts. The first 18 letters and the remaining 9 letters. The first 18 letters are called the EP Maya. This is also in a way the foundation to Meitei Maya. And the remaining 9 letters are additional. In Manipuri, they are called Lo Maya. So now the larger debate was on whether or not Meiteilon as a language can be written by only the first 18 letters. The Meitei revivalists were of the opinion that the 18 letters were sufficient for the writing of Meiteilon. However, there was another group of revivalists which in some way, in my own reading, they were influenced by Hinduism as a faith, were claiming that it is insufficient. So therefore, we need to add the additional 9 letters. For example, B as a sound, G as a sound, K as a sound. For example, these are additional letters which are added. Some of the words that you can remember is Leipak and Leibak, right? Leipak, per as a sound for the how should I put it, radical Meitei revivalist. Per is a original Meitei sound. On the other hand, ba is a sound, which is an aspirated sound. Aspirated is in the sense that ba is a aspirated her sound of ba, the linguistically speaking. So therefore, ba is an derivative of per sound, and which has come about after the arrival of Hinduism. So therefore, there was a strong argument whether or not that the Meitei language should be written only in 18 script, or that the additional 9 letters should be added. One of the important phenomenon during this 1978 and 79 moment is that there was this urgency that is shown by the Meitei revivalists, that they were trying to escape. They were trying to escape from the hold of Hinduism by reclaiming a script that is stuck in the past before the arrival of Hinduism. And the second movement is also has a very purist in tendency, and then you will also see that in the third moment. Now, in the third moment, what do we see?
Yeah, just
2005.
are we still on the first slide?
No, I'm speaking about the third moment now. I went back to the third to speak about this moment.
No, the slides.
No,
Slides
it's
are
the
not
third
changed.
moment.
No, we can't see the third slide. Third
It's a
moment.
change here. Is it changing now?
No.
It's not moving at all.
Not yet.
Reshare amtang tawbiro Oja Kel Bipin gido aduga loina la ani hana marakta disturb am tawgre Oja Bipin aduna reshare
Oh,
tawgre.
okay. Now, has it come?
How it's working?
It's working now, right? Yeah, boss.
Yes, yes, yes.
Now, the third moment is particularly important for me, considering that in the last moment, which is the selection of script that happened in 1979, and eventually after 2 years, it was approved by the government of Manipur. And it took about from 1982 to 2005, so it's about roughly a little more than 30 years, about 30 years. It took about 30 years for the government of Manipur to officially reintroduce the script in the schools of Manipur. It was so therefore it is monumental. It saves it sort of molded what Meitei could be, and so therefore it influenced other ways of Meitei life. Now, but then the introductions of this script in the schools is not without violence. If you all remember that this introduction of the script in the schools was preceded by the burning down of the Manipur State Central Library. I don't know if you remember this. So then, now this burning down of State Central Library in 2005 and the eventual reintroduction of the same script as demanded by the Milal, which is the spearheaded group of Meitei, it's quite ambiguous in the sense, right? That the state government, as we look back, seem to have been waiting for the central library to fall down into ashes, only to be introduced so that the script could be introduced. So now, why is that the government did not introduce the script before burning down the library? So now the burning down of the library gives you a very uncomfortable sense of what happened in 18th century, the burning of puyas. Many people have sort of resisted this idea that the puyas were burned down, and that's a different topic for discussion for another time. So now the burning down of library is, in 2005, in a way reminded us of what happened in 18th century, the burning of puyas, and destruction of deities and temples, etc. So this destruction of the central library, during my fieldwork, I was speaking to many of this group. They were very emotional when I was doing an interview with certain people. One of the leader of the script movement said that they were tired of waiting, right? And also, if you remember that the script was approved in 1982, and it took about 30 years to be reintroduced in the schools. And these 30 years, this long 30 years, it's long period. And these leaders, even they sold their property, they walked and cycled the breadth of this lengthened breadth of the Imphal Valley to introduce this script. And it was during this time in 2005 and 2004 that they realized that they should do something. And what should be done is left to those people who are in charge of delivering what is to be done. And the next day, that it was we heard, and even in the night, well, at night, that we heard that the library, central library, was burned down to the ground. These are very important for me. Now, in order to situate these three moments, I would like to quickly go back to what I was talking about, which is the revivalisms of Meitei faith. Now, the revivalism of Meitei faith became necessary because there was an interruption by Hinduism in its own history. The interruption happened in 18th century. And in this interruption, what was happening was the creation of private and public. Now, is my slide moving?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Now, this is where my crux of my argument also lie. Now, the arrival of Hinduism created two different spaces, which is one is public and one is private. Now, the Hinduism, because it is a missionary language and also is a very powerful religions, and also is a very powerful dominant group, pushed Meitei identity, Meitei faith in our private spaces. So therefore, any access to public, which is in terms of rituals, in terms of schools, in terms of very publicly declaring myself to be a Meitei, was completely barred away. Now, to give you an example which we can relate is our Meitei names until recently. I mean, for example, my name is Bipin, and then and also most of our names here are all Hindu names, and it's not by accident. And many of us have Hindu names, and to a certain extent Meitei names from our generations as our official names, which are accepted in the schools. And our Meitei names, we keep our Meitei names for our private spaces, where mostly homes. So now, why do we have two names? One specifically assigned for home and one for the public spaces. And now my argument is that this is not by accident that we have two different names. Right. So now, with the coming of Hinduism, the whatever Meitei faith belongs, whatever Meitei faith represented, for example, long hair, or the Meitei names, Meitei Sanamahi, Umangla, and etc. All of these things that we have to remember that they cannot be completely erased. They all exist. But then this interface, this sort of this clash between the Hindu faith and the Meitei faith created two different spaces where Meitei's faith were pushed into our private realm, which therefore become an impure subject. Now, my argument now is that every Meitei identity, every Meitei person carries two identity. One is a pure and the other is an impure identity. And this pure identity represents the Hindu self, and the impure identity represents our pre-Hindu, which is the Meitei self. Now, constantly we try to convince ourselves that my primal pre-Hindu faith are impure, so therefore it should not come out in the public, even by mistake. So now, on the other hand, during the 1930s and during the heyday of Hinduism, one can easily wear chandan and then go about in the roads, right, in the markets. But then we as in the Meitei faith cannot easily roam around. And so therefore, there's this two different identities residing in one's Meitei figure. This is crucial in the sense that we, in a way, within ourselves, have a repressed identity, and we are all the time trying to repress this because we do not try to impure, right? We do not try to impure what is considered pure, right? The pure is the public space dictated by Hinduism. So therefore, we do not want to bring out our private identity into the private and make it impure. So now this is roughly what happened in the interface between Meitei and Hindu faith. And how does revivalism work? Revivalism, particularly in the context of Nario Fulo, works in embracing those impure Meitei identity. For example, for Nario Fulo, he says he was the first one to start the ritual ceremonies, religious ritual ceremonies in Meitei language. Now, I mean, as I said earlier, that he is very sarcastic. Commentary on Meitei Hindu was that Meitei people, they speak Meiteilon as soon as they die. So which is a commentary, which is commentary on our Sanskrit narrations of our ritual performances. So now he challenges those existing ideas that Meiteilon as language is unfit to perform the ritual ceremonies. For example, whether it could be death, whether it could be of wedding, etc. So now he says is against the idea of against the idea of Chauwe and Kamal. Then Chauwe and Kamal were speaking of the idea that Meitei as a language is considered insufficient and all those things, and that they sort of lament all the time. But Nauru Fulo, in a very precise way, instead of lamenting, he says that as long as this is very important for us. This is very important for us because this is a way this is a way of decolonizing our own identity, right? He says that as long as Meiteilon as a language, right? Meiteilon as a language is defined through the yardstick of Vyakaran. Vyakaran is grammar, right? As long as Meitei is defined or measured through Vyakaran, Meitei will always suffer insufficiency. Meitei will always have lack, L-A-C-K, lack. So now, in order to overcome this insufficiency or the lack that we suffer from, Nauri Flow proposes that we have to judge our Meiteilon on the basis of our own language. We should not borrow the yardstick of somebody else. And therefore, he introduced the term called Wahauron. Wahauron. Right? Wahauron is to study Meiteilon. So now, if we do that, if we study Meiteilon through the lens of Wahauron as a mode of study, then we can revive, we can sort of assert our pride and worth of the language. Many people have claimed that this interfaith between this Hindu and Meitei is syncretic. And this is what many people, including also Bimol, have claimed that the Meitei and Hindu is a very syncretic traditions that have a very what we call a very cordial sort of relationship. But then I disagree with this sort of the formulations. My idea is that it's a very violent interface between Hindu and the Meitei faith. How much time do I have still?
We can have 5 to 10 minutes.
Okay, yeah. Now I'll come to the conclusions, and then and then also talk about the point I missed out. Why do Meitei want a script? At this point, I think I missed out that point. So now, given the idea that how revivalism work and how and what happened during the interface between Hindu faith and Meitei faith, I would like to come back to this point about language. Now, if you look at the Manipuri dailies, and even if you look at the books that are recently written, they are mostly available in. They are now beginning to available. They're now available in Meitei script. And Manipuri dailies, mostly published in Imphal Valley, if you observe them very carefully, you will see that since the before 2005-6, there was this very slow entry into these Manipuri dailies. We consider Manipuri dailies a space of power where different power axes coexist. Right. If I remember correctly, when and Pao as a Manipur Daily was the first Manipur Daily to give a small, very tiny space to Meitei script. Was just one line, one what do you call it, one column long space for Meitei script. That was very, in a way, crucial for understanding how our present Meitei society in particular exist. Now, from that moment of entry as one column to today, which has almost covered half of today's Manipur Daily, is a symbolic of entry of language and script, which is often described as impure. Now, from where do this script and language come out? From where do these scripts return to our present? They return from Puya. They return from the manuscript, which we refer to as Puya. And these Puyas were hidden by different Meitei families away from the public. There was this fear that the Puya will be confiscated by the state, by the king, and etc. And there's always this fear of, burning down. Now, this script arrival in the books and also in the public spaces from the Puya, which is hidden from the public, is in a way is a challenge to the existing power structure that is in a way dominated by Hinduism. I was giving examples of how the naming culture of Meitei, right, after the arrival of Hinduism's works. One is that the Meitei names for the homes and Hindu names for the for the schools and other officials matter. So now these binary sort of demarcations of two different names to two different spaces is also applicable in the context of language. Now, for Fulo and other people, the reintroduction of language and script was very important because it is the arrival of what was considered impure by the Hindu. Right? They now are going to occupy and arrive at a space which is, in a way, dominated by Hindu. So now, as I said earlier, it is a symbolic decolonization of space by the Meiteis. Now, but then, despite saying this, what is happening today is that the language and script movement continues to persist. Despite having this 27 script, there are still groups of people who are still unhappy with the script. There are some certain people who are still unhappy with the fact that there are 9 additional letters, right? The additional letters, that they still believe that Meitei script should be written only in the first 18 letters. For them, the first 18 letters define Meitei identity, and the remaining 9 letters is, in a way, it's a how do I put this? Impurify, if I can use the word, the Meitei language. It's a reminder that they were once under the influence of Hinduism. So now, to come back to the point I was trying to explain earlier, why do Meiteis have the desire to have a script of its own? So now, I was talking about the importance of script today in a modern nation state. Now, every community which has a script has a certain worth. It has government funding. It has state patronage, so and so. Now, these are given, but then the Meitei has a certain fantasy about having a 2000 years old history, and they're all the time trying to sort of differentiate themselves from the neighboring communities, which are largely unscripted community. For example, I was talking about the tribals, which in colloquial Meitei referred to as Hao. Now, the Haos do not have script, and to have a script of one's own, Meitei live with a sense of pride. And this pride, I'm not able saying that it's bad or good. I'm not giving a commentary on this idea, but then I can strongly sense the feeling that the idea of trying to differentiate, the politics of trying to differentiate, or we are different, we are not them. We are the community, we have history, we have traditions of 2000 years. This history is important for the formation of Meitei script. And this history is also important in a way to understand our, I mean, I don't know, I cannot claim that this is the only criteria to understand my representative context, that in some way, this particular worth, this particular infatuation towards certain past and certain history, given to the present conflict, is sort of we can use this as a tool to understand our present conflict, is what my argument is. To come back to the point, my last point is that even though the script is in some way sort of finalized into 27 letters, is in some way, so therefore our Meitei identity has been consolidated on the basis of the script and language. However, because of the presence of different communities, different groups which are still unhappy with the traditional script, tells you that identity formation is always an incomplete project. There is, so therefore, identity formation or project, when we try to fix it, once we have a sense of an end, of an identity, when we have a sense of a fixed identity, it is the beginning of an end. So therefore, we always should try to keep this idea of open-endedness in trying to understand identity formations or our own sense of success, etc. Thank you. I think I'll stop my presentation here, and then I'll take points and questions from the audience. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Bipin, for your insightful talk on the topic, particularly of the Meiteilon, its scripts and the role in as a language. So now I have a couple of hand raised in the this screen. So I now invite Dr. Puyam Savindro to put forward the question.
Yang ngai ai Meiteilon da dum ai haijarake si language gi ko akoi gi yam ngai je akoi gi oja Bipin na akoi mayam da akoi gi revival gi lakuje ko ada akoi na huji ta akoi na huji ki even title jibok da oja Bipin na Meiteilon na haibire ba ada akoi gi literally haraga di akoi Meitei ko maya binir je Meitei de mi atei ana maina wan phokse maina koina sarkar na ju masi jena ba ma legi bidegi mayamna maina Meitei kauji ena haina bu maina legi bugum tawe na haijege ada akoi gi masi ki zaye na ba koi marsi da Meitei na haibiji academician amu ina public forum da basi kasukai de phonetic issue ni Meitei haigedam ni ado matam matungina Meitei na kongnagre for example English ta ju lei ko American English aduga UK English ta duga koi organization the S jawi Z jawi ko amaina to kasukai de koi gi I do E one gre haiba du sing baji mayam de kitang ID kana bu kharang na masi yamna koi gi far right wing hai tare si yamna extreme wing na chalaga koi mase na nuai na da ba koi gi for example even koi gi association je puna koi gi pan India Meitei na pan biji da mayam na koi da haibile ko yawe ba noi lai ko yam hai raga meite yin pa lise kai kino mite yin pa ga ne noi lai ga hai ba noi na bo semdok traga di kana na semdok tu no hai bin sing ba yam na comment pilak pa yawe ba ada akoi goza language ki matang da koi goza bi pin na si matang da comment tung ta jening ba si khatang le ai gi
I hana from Madra Natraga, should I take questions? Few more questions.
One could be.
I say adu Manipuri nung from adu Manipuri kanga ba yaw Natraga Manipuri nung from Masya.
Manipuri don't come here and yell me up. Say, I'm going to
Okay. Okay. I give you a question. The other is a melody. That melody discussion they have. But we this title was given to me as in because I am because my research is on language, so therefore this title and she's also aware of my work, so therefore the title was given to me. And then I had notes to rectify this mistake on the use of word Meitei and Meitei, but then somehow I forgot it because of the flow of the presentation. Now, Manipur government gazette magi act ki matung ina Meitei haibas ki mahuta Meitei haigadabani haibagi point of view and mayek senga dum leire. Adu dumadi adum leire ado khina ma sagi ma Meitei natraga Meitei haibase aidi yakana di ingonda adu ingonda wakal nuaitaba amadi kaisu leiti na khalleba adu khoise khoina yam kana without understanding what it is when kai khana da Meitei dum pangsin ju sinda bangak ne adu somehow khoina different pressures group mayam sing say for example Manipur ki ST demand committee da Meitei habigi slash adum yaw ga mogi press not jam thokali tana ko I mean adu pot mogi politics to pressure group mayam sing say every pressure group mayam sing they have their on their vested interest adu dumal laser kare adu mogi common people mayam sing academics mayam ai oina di yam tan di say da my point of reference would be that Mitai have a wahi say Maluina ay now we follow the research work so we na mas Mitai have a wahi say kana season na Mitai to Migana season na me at mina season na me aduna I say the government gi mina quite office or pot to labor na adu panbra panbana pabra haina su khallaga I am Mitai have a say oina di am tan seasonai aduga ngasai ke na panbada yamna kahuba ma pagi ma this pagi ma script debate 1978 79 the script debates yamna mo is about 27 pages long ne ko no if you're interested pagi Manipur State Library da dum phang bane copy oina asi yam interesting way bane ida this matam je is it spend to bungam da bagi the discussion do lai gi da bane ko mo ne kamai ya gi da ge kamai ya na gi ga hai be me am sing se kamai na mo kamai additional 9 letters kamai na hap ni hap we hap is kamai ya na ki am tan mo vote to ro ta we mo still me lai to ki da half seen to halfway have to say. I don't know identity in some way decided by voting. Sige pot me am sing sa ina sige because my I focus sa ato pang lai ra na I ato ki point mai na tawang am hogda bani ko aduga pagi this so-called Meitei revivalist group me am sing sige mo ki point am lai ba mo they wanted to call instead of calling Meitei me ko mo say kang lai me ko ninga me ba mo ki point of argument se Meitei me ke mahutta kainom ta Meitei me se ku ta kainon do jam ha bi ki Meitei is too magi rich too narrow or aduna so therefore akoina atopa different tribal communities me am sin su hasan bi yan na ba kang lei ha ba se koina season na sia na mana season na ba tawram me ba du mogi debate ta it's okay aga pon amu mana aduki point yam kana aduki point sida debate to sa da bida Meitei sida agumana lei gi kang lei hai ta ga di how me am su ya ba ya re adu moina mogi point ne Meitei me se link khat na ko na ram tam da I forget the name tribal community mayam we amani leaders mayam we maming loy na palle si mayam sing say if you can sort of trace the history of the leaders of tribal community si simal laitara ga yam na khazar ne ne khan
Matangda ay basa Dewanda lang second. Mar ta ise chat box sa question la ya to ay mar ta chat tikis chat box sa isulong pa sir. So sa Dewan question ho biya.
ꯑꯍꯥꯟꯕꯗ ꯉꯁꯤꯒꯤ ꯁ꯭ꯄꯤꯁꯦꯜ ꯇꯣꯛ sigi senbiriba aduga introduction tobiriba aduga yawiriba kudimakbu gogi maitai kananabagi aduga maitai sigumba Sanskriti aduga magi leramba puya kargi mayam singsi kananabagi hauda sarug yabiriba kudimakbu ahanu maktada kurumjari aduga Oja Bipin busu thagatjari aduga ai samak gogi ERB Mumbai da scientist oin lejabani adu Oja Bipin gi kenosi taba matamda yamna nungaijai adu ngasai
Tamo mute laire.
mayam nganguraga mute layamne ija
Yeah,
sorry ado ngasai ai hanjarage ai Meiteilon da dum ngangjarage ngasigi program sigi sinbiriba ngasagi program si invite tobiriba aduga introduction pibigiba aduga wangangbiriba Oja Bipin kudimapu ahanu maktada kurumjari aduga ngasigi program si maroi ni khoi Maitai si kananaba yokananaba magi Sanskriti laiba mayam sing si preserve tawnanaba hena chawkhananaba gi pandamda ikhogi pimsana sinjabani adu to gasiga mari lenana ina hangjaningba wafum khara khangjaningbadi hawisi ikhogi barakta yamna chayetnaba mayam ama lairi ikhogi ai schedule da changraba mayek si pikhat phangamdadnaba kari mayek sin aduino have confusion mayam am lairi adu lairi sida ngasagi Oja Bipin da ina khangjaninge wafamdi Gogi Maitai Mayexida, Mayex Makal Mayamama, Foxilapa. Tasina Toxila, you see, Karamba Matam Nagi, Tokpa Hogrino. One of the possibilities the Karino Hamatanda, Gogi Garibaniwas, Napamatam, Heidi Pamhaiba, Adi Pamhaibagi, Mapasi, Magi Matamda, Charai Rong Bahitare. Sarai Romba. The same with the Pamavasi, Sarai Rombagi adopted Sunny Ko, biological canonati and me mamam claims tonari. Sarai Rombagi Matamda, if we give Manipurda, Gaura Daramasi, Besnab Daramasi, Sarai Rombalovi, Aduga, Garibanawazgi Matamda Lai. Garibanavas Matamda, Puya Simai Tagre, the Puya Gramadi Mai Tau Graham. Lungasagi say Nashida, Manipursi. Garibaniwas ki matamda kawi haiban su leire adu isam samna mayek ki confusion ama hojik mayamda sei na balaiba maitai kaugadra mitai kaugadra mayek si suksu gadra suksu roidra haimna singba mayam lerise ngoi Oja Bipin na research taw matamda karam ba puya da neinabi ba yawbage karam ba puya da mayek singsi karam ba thengnabi yuge puya kharadi yamna maro puya di wakoklun puya sini wakoklun puya sidagi mayek singsi ayamba hujiksi lauthoi adu tasengmadi masigi aiba record na singba udam changdam mamasi magi mamangda leramba gogi ningthau maidingu uran thaba ko uran thaba si gogi yamna ngalingi matam adwai matamda leramba maidingu ni haiba maidingu sina man sinaramba khara magi keno lerami haimna singba kharasu lei aduga Khelchandra iba Chaitharun Kumbaba Khelchandra iba Chaitharun Kumbaba si ariba Manipuri longai ena gogi Khelchandra gogi Manipuri sangnarba Khelchandra sina iba sida mana tongan ba Maitai Mayeki scripting ki my introduction da man ulli and utpasida man ngasagi nung da hagamba sing andagi kari iramba sing magi photocopy na singba kya marom su ulli adu haiba mayam si Oja hoina research tawi matanda kadaidagi mayeksi chaina basi lakribnu karamba puya phawbada mayeksi leramimnu adu anauba habai yusina Sandidas ki matungda habai ibra adu adugi mamangda leramba puya singsi khangdabdagi tawgribra sine ina khangjaningis Hello.
Okay.
Oh, question
Yeah.
tabiro.
Oh yeah. No, the question may say I don't think I would be able to answer all of it. The any no conservative sayetna bulai mayam so do aina ozagi question do ozagi answers dum khab yaw ada ai dum khanjaba the first ozana have sayetna bathui se kari gino have say sigi irai ba so ozana pangi bedo gi ma Hinduism lakpa Hinduism la ne puya mai tha khrabna aseng bedo kari no have the sangdaba parts of our identity say parts of our Meitei identity say like thaki made in mang rabne adu na koina identity habisity koina mamang la gi identity do koina in its pure form koina ngasi revive to busu ya de it's a humanly impossible task adu na koina thaina gi de mana chap chap purakane na khan le taraga di oiroi da ba amma da koina mang ga chamane aduna koi say even though we subscribe to what existed before the arrival of Hinduism, our willingness to go forward. Sisima laitragadi koi say in Saima Haiza Kibido, Sanskrit as a language, Sanskrit as a language, not Latin as a language, so a minor death language or you know, but a fixed chains lakuya kita begineva. I like what you because so a home came lakuya way happy to Malay Kibido. Aduduna, we get Meiteilon. Sisu kena ma hongba yaro yamne purist oiba pure oiga da bani habigi sense ta kena approach to targa di loan na se kena fixed option raga lagi targa di magi si baze hore he tare otherwise dagi aduna kayno language loan am have say is living organism amagum living species amagum loan am have say it has to grow. And growth of business, how do we grow? Mama told me growth of this, so therefore it has to borrow, right? It has to assimilate. Aduna any yamna nokning ba higher the okay, the purest way with the gay queen of my school young man since the camera say. Quite manipulate the camera have a way say manipulate on the lady than a call. Aduna because we want to create a word for camera, and angang mayam since the minimum to in the school textbook. I think that it sounds ridiculous. Aku say adu ngasai purest tendency amana sakhi bai neba. Adu na koi ngasai camera ama se koi leram da bai ni adu koi camera se is worldwide used to is acceptable haraga ama sin na bai abdo. Adu dugi possibility du ma koi na thingzan ta raga di afu gi loan se adu dugi ma magi declining period to ma lak doi neba. Adu na koi ngasai language se Southern and Nabagi, or Southern and the behind all kinds of somebody not the natural organically, Massy, Maggie growth amount when a PB get up and have to my Yabam. As I say, I don't know, Sagi, say yet number like if you put me arms in sales, other banners, I be able to the because Hinduism, like if it's enough, Mankre, I don't think Sagi script selection gay meetings that about 7 different scripts say like for consideration. One of them is Naurio Fulogi, Naurio Mayek Hebama, and the Kanglay Ye labor. Naurio Fulogi city, if you look at it, my Mayek city is the derivative of it's a Nangri Bangla May, the Yamani had the early stage, the May did them reject over here. And Autoba Mayams, Autopa script. Proposed story script mayams and say on the basis of Kane, when a puya source puya like the Taraga, the Nangi scripts consider the Roy have a key point. I am clearly quick meeting the higher. But then now the question is, how do we define what puya is? Puya Sikari, no have defined to say when you line ngam them. Puya say when a Hinduism laughing among puya, not saying void. But now, those who are inclined towards into faith, Mugi arguments again, no, Puya, Hinduism, Puya, because it's written about it is written about Meitei and it's written long ago. Puya, we do not have a similar Sapsana defined or later, but defined or later, but I'm not saying of some lame. I don't know, comment or record certain script may am since that Puya say. When the Loctoriba scripts a Loctoriba Puya say, when a proof among a people of the Taraka D. When you script say, consider the have been formulated. When a certain scripts are moved by the minor, we say, reject the keep. Aduga other arguments that mind the way ꯃꯣꯏꯒꯤ ꯁꯣꯔꯁ ꯄꯨꯌꯥ ꯑꯣꯏꯔꯤꯕ ꯃꯌꯥꯝꯁꯤꯡꯁꯤꯗ ꯑꯩꯈꯣꯏꯒꯤ ꯍꯤꯟꯗꯨꯒꯤ ꯐꯦꯊ ꯅꯠꯇ꯭ꯔ ꯑꯗꯩꯗꯤ ꯍꯤꯟꯗꯨꯒꯤ ꯂꯥꯏꯒꯨꯝꯕꯒꯤ ꯄꯤꯛꯆꯔ ꯌꯦꯛꯄꯒ ꯌꯥꯎꯏ ꯍꯥꯏꯌꯦꯕꯀꯣ ꯁꯤ ꯌꯥꯎꯔꯝ ꯇꯥꯔꯒꯗꯤ ꯃꯣꯏꯗꯣ ꯑꯣꯊꯦꯟꯇꯤꯛ ꯑꯣꯏꯗꯦ ꯍꯥꯏꯅ ꯑꯃꯨꯛ ꯗ ꯀ꯭ꯋꯦꯁꯟ ꯑꯣꯐ ꯑꯣꯊꯦꯟꯇꯤꯁꯤꯇꯤ ꯋꯥꯠ ꯏꯁ ꯔꯤꯌꯦꯜ ꯑꯦꯟ ꯋꯥꯠ ꯏꯁ ꯑꯗꯨ ꯃꯌꯥꯝꯁꯤꯡꯗꯣ ꯗꯤꯁꯀꯁ ꯇꯧꯔꯒ ꯑꯗꯨꯃꯥꯏꯅ ꯌꯥꯝꯅ ꯇꯧꯈꯤ ꯑꯗꯨꯅ ꯉꯁꯥꯏꯒꯤ ꯑꯣꯖꯥ ꯗꯦꯕꯥꯡꯒꯤ ꯂꯥꯁ ꯄꯣꯏꯟꯗ ꯑꯩ ꯉꯁꯥꯏꯒꯤ ꯑꯃ ꯑꯩꯁꯦ ꯌꯥꯝ ꯀꯟꯅ ꯑꯩꯁꯦ ꯄꯨꯌꯥꯁꯦ ꯌꯥꯝ ꯑꯩꯒꯤ ꯁ꯭ꯇꯗꯤꯁꯦ ꯄꯨꯌꯥꯁꯦ ꯌꯥꯝ ꯀꯟꯅ ꯑꯩ ꯌꯥꯝ ꯀꯟꯅ ꯈꯪꯕꯁꯨ ꯑꯣꯏꯗꯦꯕꯀꯣ ꯑꯗꯨꯅ ꯉꯁꯥꯏꯒꯤ ꯑꯩꯒꯤ ꯂꯦꯡꯒ꯭ꯋꯦꯖꯇꯗꯤ ꯉꯁꯥꯏꯒꯤ ꯁ꯭ꯀ꯭ꯔꯤꯞꯀꯤ ꯃꯣꯏꯒꯤ ꯗꯤꯕꯦꯠꯇꯣ ꯑꯗꯨꯗꯨꯒꯤ ꯑꯩꯈꯣꯏꯅ ꯇꯦꯛꯆꯨꯋꯦꯜ ꯑꯦꯅꯥꯂꯥꯏꯁꯤꯁ ꯇꯧꯔꯒ ꯑꯩꯈꯣꯏꯅ ꯑꯥꯏꯗꯦꯟꯇꯤꯇꯤ ꯐꯣꯔꯃꯦꯁꯟ 78 79ꯁꯤꯗ ꯀꯃꯥꯏꯅ ꯇꯧꯈꯤꯒꯦ ꯍꯥꯏꯕꯗꯨꯃ ꯌꯦꯡꯕꯅꯦ ꯑꯩꯒꯤꯁꯦ ꯑꯗꯨꯅ ꯑꯩꯅ ꯍꯧꯖꯤꯛ ꯑꯩ ꯄꯨꯌꯥ ꯃꯌꯥꯝꯁꯤꯡꯁꯦ ꯄꯥꯕ ꯑꯗꯨꯒꯤ ꯑꯦꯛꯁꯦꯁ ꯂꯩ ꯄꯨꯌꯥꯗꯤ ꯑꯦꯛꯁꯦꯁ ꯂꯩꯕꯁꯦ ꯌꯥꯝ ꯋꯥꯏꯌꯦ ꯑꯗꯩꯗꯤ ꯑꯃꯨꯛ ꯑꯗꯨ ꯄꯥꯕ ꯉꯝꯃꯛ ꯇꯥꯔꯒꯗꯤ ꯑꯩꯒꯤ ꯋꯥꯔꯛꯁꯦ ꯑꯃꯨꯛꯀ ꯍꯦꯟꯅ ꯐꯖꯒꯅꯦꯅ ꯈꯜꯂꯦ ꯑꯩ ꯍꯧꯖꯤꯛꯀꯤꯗꯤ ꯑꯗꯨ ꯉꯝꯗꯅ ꯂꯩꯔꯦ
ꯌꯥꯝꯕꯗꯩ ꯑꯣꯖꯥꯒꯤ ꯑꯣꯄꯤꯅꯤꯌꯟꯁꯤ ꯉꯁꯥꯏꯒꯤ ꯃꯌꯦꯛꯀꯤ ꯇꯁꯦꯡꯕꯗꯤ ꯃꯌꯦꯛꯁꯤ ꯃꯥꯒꯤ ꯃꯌꯦꯛ ꯑꯃꯁꯨꯡ ꯂꯣꯟꯁꯤ ꯉꯁꯥꯏꯒꯤ ꯃꯥꯒꯤ ꯔꯤꯚꯣꯂꯨꯁꯟ ꯃꯥꯒꯤ ꯑꯍꯣꯡꯕ ꯂꯥꯛꯄ ꯍꯥꯏꯕꯁꯤꯃꯗꯤ ꯃꯁꯤꯗꯤ ꯆꯨꯝꯃꯤ ꯑꯗꯨ ꯉꯁꯥꯏꯒꯤ ꯍꯧꯖꯤꯛ ꯂꯩꯔꯤꯕ ꯀꯩꯅꯣꯁꯤꯗ ꯃꯌꯦꯛꯁꯤ ꯀꯗꯥꯏ ꯐꯥꯎꯕ ꯌꯥꯅꯕꯒꯤ ꯂꯦꯚꯦꯜꯁꯤꯗ ꯀꯗꯥꯏ ꯐꯥꯎꯕ ꯂꯩꯔꯒꯦ ꯁꯤꯃꯅꯤ ꯑꯣꯖꯥꯗꯒꯤ ꯑꯃꯨꯛ ꯍꯪꯅꯤꯡꯉꯤꯁꯤ ꯍꯧꯖꯤꯛ ꯀꯟꯗꯤꯁꯟꯁꯤꯗ ꯀꯗꯥꯏ ꯐꯥꯎꯕ ꯂꯦꯚꯦꯜꯗ ꯌꯥꯅꯔꯦ ꯑꯗ ꯃꯁꯤ ꯃꯌꯦꯛꯁꯤ ꯌꯥꯅꯔꯦ ꯍꯥꯏꯅ ꯉꯁꯥꯏꯒꯤ ꯑꯩꯈꯣꯏꯒꯤ 8th ꯁꯦꯗꯨꯜꯗ ꯆꯟꯈ꯭ꯔ ꯃꯇꯨꯡꯁꯤꯗ ꯃꯁꯤ ꯄꯤꯁꯤꯜꯂꯁꯤ ꯀꯥ ꯍꯥꯏꯕꯅꯆꯤꯡꯕ ꯂꯦꯇꯦꯁ ꯋꯥꯔꯦꯞꯀꯨꯝꯕ ꯀꯔꯤꯒꯨꯝꯕꯒ ꯂꯩꯕꯤꯕ꯭ꯔꯥ
ꯌꯥꯅꯕꯒꯤꯗꯤ ꯌꯥꯅꯔꯦ ꯁ꯭ꯇꯦꯠꯀꯤ ꯊꯥꯛꯇ ꯒꯚꯔꯟꯃꯦꯟꯅ ꯑꯦꯄ꯭ꯔꯨꯞ ꯇꯧꯔꯝꯅꯦꯕ 1982ꯗ ꯑꯩꯈꯣꯏ 1978 79ꯁꯤꯗ ꯁ꯭ꯀ꯭ꯔꯤꯞꯀꯤ ꯗꯤꯕꯦꯠ ꯇꯧꯔꯦ ꯒꯚꯔꯟꯃꯦꯟꯅ ꯐꯣꯔꯝ ꯇꯧꯔꯒ ꯑꯦꯛꯁꯄꯔꯠ ꯀꯃꯤꯇꯤ ꯃꯌꯥꯝ ꯑꯃ ꯐꯣꯔꯝ ꯇꯧꯔꯦ ꯃꯣꯏꯅ ꯁꯕꯃꯤꯠ ꯇꯧꯔꯦ ꯑꯦꯠ ꯗ ꯑꯦꯟ ꯑꯣꯐ 79ꯗ 1979ꯒꯤ ꯂꯣꯏꯔꯛꯄ ꯑꯗꯨꯋꯥꯏꯗꯨꯗ ꯑꯗꯨ ꯑꯇꯣꯞꯄ 2-3 years 1982ꯁꯤꯗ ꯑꯦꯄ꯭ꯔꯨꯞ ꯇꯧꯔꯦ ꯑꯗꯨꯗꯨꯅ ꯁꯤꯁꯤꯗ ꯌꯥꯅꯗꯕ ꯍꯥꯏꯕꯁꯤꯗꯤ ꯑꯣꯐꯤꯁꯤꯌꯦꯜꯂꯤ ꯌꯥꯅꯗꯕ ꯍꯥꯏꯕꯗꯨꯃꯗꯤ ꯂꯩꯇ꯭ꯔꯦꯕ ꯑꯗꯨꯅ ꯑꯗꯨꯕꯨ ꯃꯅꯨꯡꯗ ꯗꯤꯐ꯭ꯔꯦꯟ ꯒ꯭ꯔꯨꯞ ꯄ꯭ꯔꯦꯁꯔ ꯒ꯭ꯔꯨꯞ ꯃꯌꯥꯝꯁꯤꯡꯁꯤꯒꯤ ꯃꯣꯏꯒꯤ ꯄꯦꯜꯍꯧꯗꯕ ꯃꯌꯥꯝꯁꯤꯡꯗꯨꯗꯤ ꯑꯗꯨꯝ ꯂꯩꯔꯤꯕ ꯉꯁꯥꯏꯒꯤ ꯑꯩꯈꯣꯏꯒꯤ 27 ꯂꯦꯇꯔꯁꯤꯒꯤ ꯂꯣꯏꯔꯛꯄꯗ ꯍꯥꯞꯆꯤꯜꯂꯛꯏꯕ 9 ꯂꯦꯇꯔꯁꯦ ꯁꯤꯁꯤꯅ ꯑꯩꯈꯣꯏꯒꯤ ꯃꯩꯇꯩ ꯑꯥꯏꯗꯦꯟꯇꯤꯇꯤꯗ ꯁꯦꯡꯍꯟꯗ꯭ꯔꯦ ꯀꯥꯏꯅ ꯈꯟꯖꯕ ꯒ꯭ꯔꯨꯞ ꯂꯩꯕꯗꯣ ꯑꯗꯨꯕꯨ ꯑꯩꯒꯤ ꯑꯣꯄꯤꯅꯤꯌꯟꯗꯗꯤ ꯁꯤꯁꯦ ꯑꯩꯈꯣꯏꯁꯦ ꯑꯗꯨꯝ ꯋꯤ ꯁꯨꯗ ꯃꯨꯚ ꯐꯣꯔꯋꯥꯔꯗ ꯍꯥꯏꯗꯅ ꯑꯩꯅ ꯑꯗꯨꯃꯥꯏꯅ ꯑꯗꯣ ꯀꯌꯥꯝ ꯌꯥꯅꯔꯒꯦ ꯍꯥꯏꯕꯗꯨꯗꯤ two ways of looking at it when ꯁ꯭ꯇꯦꯠꯀꯤ ꯊꯥꯛꯇꯗꯤ ꯌꯥꯅꯗꯕ ꯂꯩꯇ꯭ꯔꯦ ꯍꯧꯖꯤꯛꯁꯤ MA ꯌꯧꯔꯒ ꯂꯩꯔꯦ ꯂꯥꯏꯔꯤꯛꯁꯦ ꯇꯝꯃꯒ ꯁ꯭ꯀꯨꯜ ꯃꯌꯥꯝ ꯇꯝꯃꯦ ꯑꯗꯨꯕꯨ ꯑꯩꯈꯣꯏꯒꯤ ꯄꯔꯁꯣꯅꯦꯜ ꯂꯥꯏꯐ ꯃꯌꯥꯝꯁꯤꯡꯗꯗꯤ ꯃꯅꯨꯡꯗ ꯃꯁꯥ ꯃꯁꯥꯒꯤ ꯄꯦꯟꯅꯗꯕ ꯑꯗꯨꯃꯥꯏꯅꯗꯤ ꯂꯩ ꯍꯥꯏꯅ ꯇꯥꯏ
Thank you, Oza Diwan. ꯗꯤꯁꯀꯁꯟꯁꯦ ꯌꯥꯝꯅ ꯏꯟꯇꯔꯦꯁꯇꯤꯡ ꯑꯣꯏꯌꯦ ꯑꯩꯈꯣꯏ ꯉꯁꯥꯏꯒꯤ ꯑꯩꯈꯣꯏꯒꯤ ꯃꯩꯇꯩꯂꯣꯟꯁꯦ ꯀꯃꯥꯏꯅ ꯏꯚꯣꯜꯕ ꯇꯧꯔꯛꯄ ꯑꯗꯨꯒ ꯂꯦꯡꯒ꯭ꯋꯦꯖ ꯑꯇꯩ ꯑꯇꯩ ꯌꯥꯟꯁꯤꯜꯂꯛꯄꯗꯤ ꯑꯗꯨꯒꯤ ꯏꯐꯦꯛ ꯀꯔꯤ ꯂꯩꯕ ꯑꯗꯨꯒ ꯑꯩ ꯑꯣꯖꯥ ꯒꯨꯅꯗꯣꯔꯗ ꯂꯥꯛꯇ꯭ꯔꯤꯉꯩꯗ ꯍꯥꯏꯔꯤꯕ ꯍꯧꯖꯤꯛ ꯗꯤꯁꯀꯁ ꯇꯧꯔꯤꯕ ꯄꯣꯏꯟꯠꯁꯤꯒ ꯃꯔꯤ ꯂꯩꯅꯕ ꯀ꯭ꯋꯦꯁꯟ ꯑꯝꯇ ꯆꯥꯠ ꯕꯣꯛꯁꯦ ꯂꯧꯈꯠꯆꯔꯛꯀꯦ ꯀ꯭ꯋꯦꯁꯟ ꯍꯪꯕꯤꯔꯛꯏꯁꯦ ꯑꯩꯈꯣꯏꯒꯤ ꯕꯤꯁ꯭ꯋꯅꯥꯊ ꯁꯤꯟꯍꯥ ꯑꯩꯅ ꯈꯪꯖꯕꯗ ꯕꯤꯁ꯭ꯋꯅꯥꯊꯁꯦ ꯑꯁꯥꯝꯗꯒꯤ ꯑꯣꯏꯗꯧꯕ ꯃꯥꯜꯂꯤ ꯑꯗꯣ ꯃꯥꯒꯤ ꯀ꯭ꯋꯦꯁꯟꯁꯦ ꯑꯩ ꯑꯗꯨꯝ ꯏꯪꯂꯤꯁꯇ ꯍꯥꯏꯔꯛꯑꯦ ꯏꯪꯂꯤꯁꯇ ꯑꯗꯨꯝ ꯄꯥꯊꯣꯛꯆꯔꯒꯦ It appears that in every milestone there was some kind of arm twisting and violence involved. Similar situation arises for the languages like Poro and Koborok now. So my question is the current process irreversible, particularly given the fact that the rights now want every small groups should get assimilated under one larger umbrella and all their scripts should be Devanagari? The question anini. The current process is irreversible. Webra aduga ngasagi akoigi larger umbrella amada akoigi language se most of sanbugi matanga.
ꯑꯩꯅ ꯈꯤꯇꯪ ꯒ꯭ꯌꯥꯟ ꯇꯥꯗꯕ ꯑꯣꯖꯥ ꯀꯩꯅꯣꯒꯤꯁꯦ ꯑꯣꯖꯥ ꯍꯧꯖꯤꯛꯀꯤꯗꯣ ꯀꯩ ꯃꯃꯤꯡ ꯀꯥꯎꯟꯇ
Vishwanath Sinha.
ꯑꯣꯖꯥ ꯕꯤꯁ꯭ꯋꯅꯥꯊꯀꯤ ꯑꯃ irreversible ꯍꯥꯏꯕꯁꯦ is it an irreversible process ꯍꯥꯏꯕꯁꯤꯗ reversible ꯑꯣꯏꯇꯥꯔꯒꯗꯤ to what should be reversed back ꯑꯗꯨꯗꯨꯒꯤ ꯀ꯭ꯋꯦꯁꯟꯗꯨꯃ ꯈꯤꯇꯪ ꯀ꯭ꯂꯤꯌꯔ ꯇꯧꯕꯤꯔꯛꯑꯒꯗꯤ ꯌꯥꯝ ꯅꯨꯡꯉꯥꯏꯅꯤ ꯀꯩꯅꯣꯒ irreversible ꯑꯣꯏꯕ ꯍꯥꯏꯕꯁꯦ there's this
Oza Vishwanath
desire
layer mic itong on to view. Vishwanath Sinha, if you're available, can you please switch on your mic?
Sorry, so irreversible hai jaina. So there has been many processes, and within koi ki Meitei script jo opinion mayam variation poibe matum desu. There is a kind of consensus now, but there are also particularly these days other elements which are working. In other thing asai ki Kokborok and Boro language ki example di bado. So so these are two examples where the community has not been able to come to a conclusion about what script they should write.
Okay. So questions, I don't. I mean, I will try to answer as far as possible, and because I'm not able to fully understand. Irreversible process. Is it an irreversible process? I have to say. See, what should be reversed back? Have a question. Manipur ki matang as I discussed earlier, different script claims mayam leki. Arm twisting.
Sorry, I'm back now again. Sorry. So, can I continue?
Yeah, please.
So reversible idea in a whether can the entire process be reversed and is there any possibility like that?
Why should we want to reverse back? It took about 300 years to come to this point.
I am not advocating for that. All I am saying is that given the fact that the political leadership has been so weak, particularly of late, is there any possibility that they can all of a sudden they come and say that let's go for Devanagari script?
Kenogi olabi sunaki se keno khari mi pai ba mi aur ga question male okay adu dumadi leito bi mande ka kino haraga kogi that Devanagari script amona hanchi gadra haibigi potse adu dugi fear dudi later but then adu ki possibility to rule out the body there because politics hypercity it could always happen adubu koi adu wai thokani haiba yam kanadi ai motor because koi Meitei politics say this is why it gets interesting. Meitei politics say it is not what it is projected outside. Meitei politics say within what is seen as politics, see marums the mayam chatlagalay banina. Devanagari so-called si mayam since Devanagari is na man stand out Indian states stand out they cannot easily do it. Adugi reversal of script to the Yado mande adabu as I said in among the high kipito the South Asian countries mayam since the same nation state country mayam since say magi model say European countries mayam European countries one language one country language so now there is a push for Hindi even today three language formula say three language formula is a mother tongue state language the national language so-called language given this language formulas for example Manipuri context the Manipuri tribal mayam say until Meiteilon tamani, English tamani, Hindi tamani. Formative years matamsida moigi loan se tam da bida moi chawlak kadoine. This is language three language formulas failures is season ever. Three language formulas the benefit of say Hindi because one of the criteria of three language formula is that non-speaking state mayams na Hindi tamaga Hindi speaking state mayams na any one of the sovereign language tamba aduki understand Hindi speaking state mayams they refuse to learn any other language apart from Hindi. ꯑꯗꯨꯗꯨꯅ ꯑꯩꯈꯣꯏꯒꯤ ꯑꯩꯒꯤ ꯑꯉꯥꯡ ꯃꯌꯥꯝꯁꯤꯡꯁꯦ ꯃꯥꯁꯦ ꯂꯣꯟ ꯑꯍꯨꯝ ꯇꯝꯃꯦ ꯑꯗꯨꯃꯥꯏꯅ ꯕꯔꯗꯟꯁꯦ ꯑꯇꯣꯞꯄ ꯁꯕꯖꯦꯛ ꯑꯃꯇ ꯅꯨꯡꯉꯥꯏꯅ ꯇꯝꯖꯕ ꯃꯥꯒꯤ ꯅꯣꯂꯦꯖꯀꯤ ꯕꯔꯗꯟ ꯌꯥꯝ ꯆꯥꯎꯋꯦ ꯑꯗꯨꯗꯨꯃ ꯑꯁꯤꯁꯤꯒꯤ ꯕꯔꯗꯟ ꯂꯩꯕ ꯍꯥꯏꯇꯥꯔꯦ ꯐꯣꯔ ꯑꯦꯛꯖꯥꯝꯄꯜ ꯑꯩꯈꯣꯏꯅ ꯇꯝꯃꯛꯏꯕ ꯑꯩꯈꯣꯏꯅ ꯍꯤꯟꯗꯤ ꯇꯝꯃꯛꯏꯁꯦ it is not for us ꯑꯁꯤꯒꯤ ꯑꯥꯔꯒꯨꯃꯦꯟ ꯌꯥꯝ ꯆꯥꯎꯅ ꯂꯩꯔꯦꯅꯦꯕ ꯑꯩꯈꯣꯏꯅ ꯇꯝꯃꯛꯏꯕ ꯍꯤꯟꯗꯤꯁꯦ it is not for ourselves to speak. It is because some people from North India refuse to learn our language. So therefore, on their behalf, we are learning their language so that I can speak to him. ꯑꯗꯨꯗꯨꯒꯤ ꯏꯀ꯭ꯋꯦꯁꯟꯗꯅꯦꯕ ꯂꯥꯛꯏꯁꯦ ꯃꯣꯏꯗ ꯂꯣꯟ ꯑꯃꯨꯛ ꯇꯝꯃꯣꯏ ꯍꯥꯏꯔꯦ ꯑꯩꯈꯣꯏꯒꯁꯨ ꯋꯥꯔꯤ ꯁꯥꯟꯅꯁꯤ ꯍꯥꯏꯔꯦ ꯃꯣꯏꯒꯤ ꯋꯥꯔꯤ ꯁꯥꯟꯅꯕꯁꯤꯗ ꯀꯃꯥꯏꯅ ꯁꯥꯟꯅꯅꯤ ꯃꯣꯏ ꯃꯔꯣꯟꯗꯣ ꯑꯩꯈꯣꯏ ꯑꯃꯨꯛ ꯇꯝꯕ ꯑꯃꯨꯛ ꯆꯠꯇꯣꯏꯅꯦꯕ Now, in all of this, scheduled language ꯑꯣꯏꯍꯧꯗꯕ ꯃꯌꯥꯝꯁꯤꯡꯁꯤꯒꯤ ꯐꯦꯠꯁꯤꯅꯦꯕ ꯂꯣꯏꯅ ꯁꯤꯗꯔꯛꯏꯁꯦ ꯃꯅꯤꯄꯨꯔꯒꯤꯕꯨꯗꯤ scheduled language ꯑꯣꯏꯍꯧꯕꯅꯤꯅ ꯃꯥꯁꯦ ꯑꯉꯥꯡ ꯃꯌꯥꯝ ꯇꯝꯃꯦ ꯑꯗꯨ ꯑꯣꯏꯍꯧꯗꯕ ꯃꯌꯥꯝꯁꯤꯡꯁꯦ ꯁꯤꯁꯤꯒꯤ ꯑꯩꯈꯣꯏꯒꯤ ꯕꯦꯅꯤꯐꯤꯠꯁ ꯃꯌꯥꯝꯗꯣ ꯐꯪꯗ꯭ꯔꯦ ꯑꯗꯨꯒ ꯑꯩꯈꯣꯏ ꯃꯌꯥꯝꯁꯤꯡꯁꯤꯒꯤ ꯀꯩꯅꯣ all kinds of benefits from the state ꯁꯦ ꯐꯪꯕ ꯌꯥꯝꯅ ꯋꯥꯕ ꯈꯣꯠꯄ ꯑꯗꯨ ꯇꯧꯋꯦ ꯑꯗꯨꯅ ꯉꯁꯥꯏꯒꯤ ꯀꯩꯅꯣꯒꯤ ꯄꯣꯏꯟꯗ ꯃꯔꯁ ꯇꯧꯔꯛꯄ ꯍꯥꯏꯕꯁꯦ ꯑꯩꯈꯣꯏꯅ ꯗꯤꯛꯇꯦꯇꯣꯔꯤꯌꯦꯜ ꯌꯥꯝ ꯑꯣꯏꯔꯛꯑꯅꯦꯕ every language should be written in Devanagari script dictatorial ꯑꯣꯏꯔꯛꯑꯅꯤ and then it cannot be ruled out given our political climate.
ꯌꯥꯝ ꯅꯨꯡꯉꯥꯏ ꯗꯤꯁꯀꯁꯟꯁꯦ ꯃꯊꯪꯗ ꯑꯣꯖꯥ ꯒꯨꯅꯦꯗꯣꯜꯗ ꯂꯥꯛꯆꯒꯦ ꯑꯣꯖꯥ ꯒꯨꯅꯦꯗꯣꯜ ꯃꯥꯏꯛ ꯑꯣꯟ ꯇꯧꯔꯒ ꯀ꯭ꯋꯦꯁꯟꯗꯣ ꯍꯪꯕꯤꯌꯨ
ꯍꯣꯏ ꯊꯦꯡꯛ ꯌꯨ ꯑꯩ ꯒꯨꯗ ꯏꯚꯤꯅꯤꯡ ꯇꯨ ꯑꯣꯜ ꯑꯗꯣ ꯑꯩꯅ ꯍꯥꯏꯖꯗꯣꯏꯁꯤꯗꯤ ꯀꯣꯏꯁꯟꯁꯤ ꯑꯣꯏꯗꯧꯕ ꯃꯥꯜꯗꯦ ꯑꯩꯒꯤꯗꯤ ꯀꯃꯦꯟ ꯑꯣꯏꯅ ꯇꯧꯖꯒꯦꯕ ꯀꯩꯒꯤꯅꯣ ꯍꯥꯏꯕꯗ ꯉꯁꯥꯏꯗꯒꯤ ꯍꯥꯏꯅꯔꯤꯕ ꯍꯤꯟꯗꯤ ꯅꯝꯅ ꯉꯥꯡꯍꯟꯕ ꯑꯃ ꯇꯧꯕ ꯍꯥꯏꯁꯦ ꯑꯩꯈꯣꯏꯒꯤ ꯂꯣꯜ ꯑꯅꯤ ꯉꯥꯡꯕꯁꯦ ꯁꯤꯁꯤꯅ ꯌꯥꯝꯗ꯭ꯔꯕꯗ ꯐꯕ ꯃꯌꯥꯝ ꯍꯦꯟꯕ ꯀꯟꯗꯤꯁꯟ ꯂꯩꯌꯦꯕ ꯈꯨꯗꯝ ꯑꯣꯏꯅ ꯏꯪꯂꯤꯁꯃꯦꯟ ꯑꯃꯅ ꯑꯦꯅꯤ ꯂꯦꯡꯒ꯭ꯋꯦꯖ ꯇꯝꯕ ꯁꯨꯡꯉꯝ ꯉꯝꯗꯦꯕ ꯑꯩꯈꯣꯏꯒꯤꯗꯨꯗ ꯑꯗꯨꯝ ꯇꯧꯈ꯭ꯔꯕꯅꯤꯅ ꯁꯦꯝ ꯋꯦ ꯍꯤꯟꯗꯤ ꯉꯥꯡꯕ ꯃꯤꯁꯤꯡꯁꯦ ꯍꯤꯟꯗꯤ ꯉꯥꯡꯉꯒ ꯉꯁꯥꯏꯒꯤ ꯅꯦꯁꯅꯦꯜ ꯄꯔꯐꯣꯔꯃꯦꯟꯁꯇ ꯌꯥꯔꯛꯇꯦꯕ ꯌꯨ ꯄꯤꯒꯤ ꯃꯤꯁꯦ ꯈꯨꯗꯝ ꯑꯣꯏꯅ ꯑꯗꯨꯃꯥꯏꯅ ꯇꯧꯗꯅ ꯖꯄꯥꯟꯒꯨꯝꯕꯗꯗꯤ ꯃꯣꯏ ꯃꯔꯣꯟꯁꯤꯗꯤ ꯌꯥꯝ ꯁ꯭ꯇ꯭ꯔꯦꯁ ꯄꯤꯕ ꯑꯗꯨꯅ ꯉꯁꯥꯏꯒꯤ ꯃꯣꯏꯒꯤ ꯄ꯭ꯔꯅꯟꯁꯤꯌꯦꯁꯟꯗꯣ ꯌꯥꯗ꯭ꯔꯐꯥꯎꯇꯁꯨ ꯍꯥꯏꯕꯗꯤ ꯈꯨꯗꯝ ꯑꯣꯏꯅ ꯑꯩꯒꯤ ꯃꯤꯡ ꯒꯨꯅꯥꯙꯣꯔ ꯍꯥꯏꯔꯦ ꯒꯨꯅꯥꯙꯣꯔ ꯍꯥꯏꯕꯁꯦ ꯃꯣꯏ ꯍꯥꯏꯕ ꯊꯣꯛꯇꯦꯕ ꯑꯗꯨꯅ ꯑꯩꯒꯤ ꯀꯩꯅꯣ ꯕꯣꯁꯇꯨꯅ ꯍꯥꯏꯅꯕ ꯂꯥꯛꯅꯕꯗ ꯀꯔꯤ ꯍꯥꯏꯒꯦ ꯒꯨꯟꯒꯨꯅꯥ ꯍꯥꯏꯔ ꯂꯦꯞꯈ꯭ꯔꯦꯕ ꯁꯦꯝ ꯋꯦ ꯑꯣꯀ꯭ꯔꯝ ꯍꯥꯏꯁꯤꯁꯨ ꯀꯔꯤ ꯍꯥꯏꯒꯦꯗ ꯑꯣꯀꯨꯔꯥꯃꯨ ꯑꯅ ꯍꯥꯏꯕ ꯃꯣꯏꯒꯤ ꯄ꯭ꯔꯅꯟꯁꯤꯌꯦꯁꯟ ꯅꯠꯇ꯭ꯔꯒ ꯑꯜꯐꯥꯕꯦꯠꯇꯣ ꯑꯗꯨꯒꯤ ꯃꯇꯨꯡ ꯏꯟꯅ ꯄꯥꯏꯌꯦꯕ ꯃꯣꯏꯗꯤ ꯑꯗꯨꯅ ꯃꯣꯏꯒꯤꯗꯤ ꯂꯣꯏ ꯂꯥꯏꯕ ꯁꯦꯂꯦꯕꯜꯁꯦ ꯂꯥꯏꯕ ꯇꯅꯥꯀꯥ ꯍꯥꯏꯕ ꯑꯗꯒꯤ ꯁꯨꯖꯨꯀꯤꯅ ꯍꯥꯏꯕ ꯑꯗꯨꯒꯨꯝꯕ ꯀꯝꯄ꯭ꯂꯤꯀꯦꯇꯦꯠ ꯑꯣꯏꯕ ꯀꯩꯅꯣ ꯀꯥꯒ ꯔꯥꯒ ꯇꯞꯅꯕ ꯈꯨꯗꯝ ꯑꯣꯏꯅ ꯑꯣꯀ꯭ꯔꯝ ꯍꯥꯏꯁꯦ ꯑꯗꯒꯤ ꯑꯩꯈꯣꯏꯒꯤꯗꯤ ꯑꯗꯨꯒꯨꯝꯕ ꯃꯌꯥꯝ ꯂꯩꯈ꯭ꯔꯦ ꯑꯗꯨꯒꯤ ꯃꯌꯥꯝꯗꯣ ꯈꯟꯅꯗꯕꯤꯗ ꯃꯣꯏꯗꯤ ꯃꯣꯏ ꯂꯦꯡꯒ꯭ꯋꯦꯖꯇꯨ ꯆꯥꯎꯈꯠꯅꯕ ꯇꯧꯋꯦꯕ ꯑꯗꯣ ꯑꯩꯈꯣꯏ ꯉꯁꯥꯏꯗꯒꯤ ꯇꯧꯕꯁꯤꯗ ꯑꯩꯅ ꯀꯃꯦꯟꯠꯅ ꯍꯦꯟꯅ ꯍꯥꯏꯖꯗꯣꯏꯁꯦ ꯕꯤꯄꯤꯟꯅ ꯉꯥꯡꯉꯤꯕ ꯀꯩꯅꯣ ꯇꯧꯔꯤꯁꯦ ꯉꯁꯤ ꯇꯣꯄꯤꯛꯁꯦ ꯏꯁ ꯚꯦꯔꯤ ꯏꯟꯇꯔꯦꯁꯇꯤꯡ ꯑꯗꯨꯅꯕꯨ ꯑꯩ ꯅꯍꯥꯟꯒꯤ ꯀꯩꯅꯣ ꯌꯥꯎꯕ ꯉꯝꯗ ꯆꯥꯔ ꯉꯁꯤꯗꯤ ꯑꯝꯇ ꯌꯥꯎ ꯌꯦꯡꯒꯦꯅ ꯇꯧꯖꯕꯅꯤ ꯑꯗꯣ ꯑꯗꯩꯗ ꯑꯩꯈꯣꯏꯒꯤ ꯑꯍꯥꯟꯕꯗ ꯀꯩꯅꯣꯅ ꯑꯣꯖꯥ ꯕꯤꯄꯤꯟꯅ ꯍꯥꯏꯕꯤꯔꯤꯁꯦ ꯃꯣꯃꯦꯟꯠꯅ ꯍꯥꯏꯌꯦꯕ ꯄꯦꯔꯦꯠ ꯑꯃꯁꯦ ꯃꯣꯃꯦꯟꯠ ꯍꯥꯏꯕ ꯌꯥꯗꯦꯕ ꯏꯪꯂꯤꯁꯀꯤ ꯃꯇꯨꯡ ꯏꯟꯅ ꯑꯗꯒꯤ ꯑꯗꯨꯃꯥꯏꯅ ꯇꯧꯔꯒ ꯉꯁꯥꯏꯒꯤ ꯑꯗꯨꯏꯗꯨꯝ ꯂꯩꯔꯦ ꯑꯗꯨꯏꯗꯨꯃ ꯏꯪꯂꯤꯁ ꯀꯩꯅꯣꯗ ꯒ꯭ꯔꯥꯃꯔꯗ ꯈꯔ ꯐꯖꯅ ꯌꯦꯡꯕꯤꯌꯣꯕ ꯑꯗꯩ ꯍꯥꯏꯕꯗꯤ ꯀꯩꯒꯤꯅꯣꯗ ꯑꯣꯖꯥꯅ ꯉꯥꯡꯕꯤꯗꯣꯏꯁꯦ ꯏꯪꯂꯤꯁꯅ ꯉꯥꯡꯉꯤꯁꯤꯅꯤ ꯅꯦꯁꯅꯦꯜ ꯅꯠꯇꯅ ꯏꯟꯇꯔꯅꯦꯁꯅꯦꯜ ꯇꯥꯔꯛꯇꯣꯏꯅꯤ ꯑꯗꯨꯅ ꯑꯗꯨꯒꯨꯝꯕꯗꯨꯗ ꯉꯥꯡꯕ ꯀꯥꯟꯗ ꯃꯥꯒꯤ ꯊꯥꯖꯕ ꯌꯥꯕꯅꯦ ꯈꯟꯗꯣꯏꯅꯦꯕ ꯁꯦꯀꯦꯟ ꯄꯣꯏꯟꯠ ꯃꯩꯇꯩ ꯌꯦꯠꯅꯔꯦꯅ ꯍꯥꯏꯔꯦ ꯑꯗꯣ ꯑꯩꯈꯣꯏꯅ ꯍꯥꯏꯕ ꯀꯥꯟꯗꯗꯤ ꯃꯤꯇꯩ ꯍꯥꯏꯕꯁꯦ ꯇꯥꯗꯕ ꯇꯧꯋꯦꯕ ꯏꯟ ꯁꯨꯝ ꯇꯥꯕꯗ ꯑꯗꯣ ꯍꯧꯖꯤꯛ ꯑꯣꯖꯥꯒꯤ ꯏꯔꯤꯕ ꯁꯀ꯭ꯔꯤꯞꯇꯣ ꯑꯗꯩꯗꯗꯤ ꯃꯤꯇꯩ ꯍꯥꯏꯕꯁꯨ ꯃꯩꯇꯩ ꯍꯥꯏꯕꯁꯨ ꯑꯗꯒꯤ ꯉꯥꯡꯕꯗꯅ ꯃꯩꯇꯩ ꯍꯥꯏꯔꯦ ꯏꯕꯗꯅ ꯃꯤꯇꯩ ꯍꯥꯏꯔꯦ ꯑꯗꯨ ꯑꯣꯏꯇꯥꯔꯗꯤ ꯉꯁꯥꯏ ꯆꯌꯦꯠꯅꯕꯗꯨꯅ ꯍꯦꯟꯗ꯭ꯔꯣ ꯑꯗꯨ ꯑꯣꯏꯇꯥꯔꯗꯤ ꯑꯩꯈꯣꯏ ꯉꯁꯥꯏ ꯖꯄꯥꯟꯒꯤ ꯑꯗꯨꯃꯥꯏꯅ ꯃꯣꯏꯒꯤ ꯃꯔꯣꯟꯗꯣ ꯀꯔꯤꯃꯧ ꯁꯨꯗꯕ ꯇꯥꯔꯁꯨ ꯏꯪꯂꯤꯁꯁꯤ ꯉꯥꯡꯕ ꯍꯩꯕ ꯌꯥꯝ ꯌꯥꯎꯗꯦꯕ ꯃꯣꯏꯒꯤ ꯃꯔꯣꯟꯗꯨꯗ ꯑꯗꯨꯝ ꯇꯧꯕꯅꯤꯅ ꯑꯗꯨ ꯑꯣꯏꯇꯥꯔꯁꯨ ꯖꯄꯥꯟ ꯏꯁ ꯋꯥꯟ ꯑꯣꯐ ꯗ ꯃꯣꯁ ꯗꯦꯕꯂꯞ ꯀꯟꯇ꯭ꯔꯤज ꯏꯟ ꯗ ꯋꯥꯔꯜड ꯃꯣꯏ ꯂꯦꯡꯒ꯭ꯋꯦꯖꯁꯨ ꯆꯥꯎꯈꯠꯂꯤ ꯃꯤꯁꯨ ꯖꯁ 125 ꯃꯤꯂꯤꯌꯟ ꯑꯣꯟꯂꯤ ꯑꯗꯣ ꯑꯗꯨꯗꯒꯤ ꯑꯗꯨꯃꯥꯏꯅ ꯇꯧꯗꯅ ꯑꯩꯈꯣই ꯁꯤꯒꯤ ꯂꯦꯡꯒ꯭ꯋꯦꯖꯁꯤꯡꯒꯤꯗꯤ ꯑꯩꯈꯣꯏ ꯏꯁꯥꯅ ꯀꯩꯅꯣ ꯇꯧꯔꯤꯕ ꯔꯤꯚꯣꯂꯨꯁꯅꯔꯤ ꯍꯥꯏꯗꯣꯔꯤꯕ꯭ꯔꯥ ꯏꯚꯣꯂꯨꯁꯅꯔꯤ ꯍꯥꯏꯗꯣꯔꯤꯕ꯭ꯔꯥ ꯁ꯭ꯇꯦꯖꯦꯁ ꯃꯌꯥꯝ ꯑꯃ ꯂꯩꯈ꯭ꯔꯕꯅꯤꯅ ꯀꯟꯇ꯭ꯔꯣꯚꯔꯁꯤꯗꯨ ꯃꯌꯥꯝ ꯍꯦꯜꯂꯤꯕ ꯑꯩꯈꯣꯏꯒꯤ ꯆꯌꯦꯠꯅꯕ ꯃꯌꯥꯝꯁꯦ ꯑꯗꯩꯗ ꯑꯩꯈꯣꯏꯁꯦ ꯀꯔꯤꯃ ꯈꯟꯗꯅ ꯁꯤꯁꯤꯃ ꯌꯥꯅꯔꯦ ꯇꯧꯔꯁꯤ ꯌꯥꯔꯗꯤ ꯐꯩ ꯑꯁ ꯑꯩꯒꯤ ꯇꯧꯍꯧꯗ꯭ꯔꯦ ꯑꯩꯈꯣꯏꯒꯤ ꯒ꯭ꯔꯨꯞꯀꯤ ꯇꯧꯍꯧꯗ꯭ꯔꯦꯅ ꯁꯨꯝ ꯌꯦꯟꯅꯅ ꯂꯩꯇꯥꯔꯗꯤ ꯗꯦꯕꯂꯞꯃꯦꯟꯗꯨ ꯌꯥꯎꯔꯔꯣꯏꯕ ꯗꯦꯕꯂꯞꯃꯦꯟ ꯍꯥꯏꯕꯗꯤ ꯃꯨꯚꯃꯦꯟ ꯍꯥꯏꯕꯗꯤ ꯌꯥꯎꯔꯔꯣꯏꯕ ꯉꯁꯥꯏ ꯃꯨꯚꯃꯦꯟ 2005, 6 ꯑꯗꯥꯏ ꯀꯥꯟꯗ ꯑꯩ ꯏꯟꯗꯣꯔꯗ ꯂꯩ ꯃꯇꯝꯗꯨꯗ ꯑꯩ ꯇꯥꯏ ꯁꯨꯃꯥꯏꯅ ꯇꯧꯗꯅ ꯃꯩ ꯊꯥꯔꯦ ꯈꯣꯠꯂꯦ ꯑꯗꯨ ꯅꯨꯡꯉꯥꯏꯇꯦ ꯑꯗꯨ ꯑꯣꯏꯇꯥꯔꯁꯨ ꯃꯩꯇꯩ ꯁꯀ꯭ꯔꯤꯞ ꯍꯧꯗꯣꯔꯦ ꯍꯥꯏꯕꯗ ꯑꯩ ꯅꯨꯡꯉꯥꯏꯕꯗꯤ ꯄꯣꯛꯑꯦꯕ ꯑꯗꯩ ꯁꯦꯝ ꯋꯦ 1987 ꯒꯨꯝꯕꯗ ꯃꯥꯜꯂꯦ ꯑꯩ ꯁꯨꯝ ꯈꯟꯕꯗ ꯗꯤꯜꯂꯤꯗ ꯀꯩꯅꯣꯒꯤ ꯑꯩꯈꯣꯏꯒꯤ ꯄ꯭ꯔꯒꯇꯤ ꯃꯩꯗꯥꯟꯁꯤꯗ ꯂꯤꯇꯔꯦꯆꯔ ꯁꯣ ꯂꯤꯇꯔꯦꯔꯤ ꯁꯣ ꯇꯧꯋꯦꯕ ꯑꯗꯩꯗ ꯑꯩꯈꯣꯏꯒꯤ ꯂꯦꯡꯒ꯭ꯋꯦꯖꯁꯦ ꯍꯥꯏꯗꯤ ꯂꯥꯏꯔꯤꯛꯁꯦ ꯃꯌꯥꯝ ꯑꯃ ꯊꯝꯕꯁꯦ ꯁꯤꯁꯦ ꯀꯩꯅꯣ ꯔꯥꯖꯁꯊꯥꯟꯒꯨꯝꯕ ꯑꯆꯧꯕ ꯁ꯭ꯇꯦꯠꯁꯤꯅ ꯃꯅꯤꯄꯨꯔꯁꯤ ꯀꯜꯂꯛꯑꯦꯕ ꯀꯜꯂꯛꯄ ꯍꯥꯏꯕꯗꯤ ꯑꯗꯨꯅ ꯃꯣꯏ ꯔꯥꯖꯁꯊꯥꯅꯤꯁꯨ ꯀꯩꯅꯣꯗ ꯑꯩꯈꯣꯏꯒꯤ ꯀꯔꯤ 8 ꯁꯦꯗꯨꯜꯗ ꯆꯟꯒꯗꯕꯅꯤ ꯑꯗꯨ ꯇꯧꯒꯗꯕꯅꯤ ꯑꯗꯥ ꯃꯅꯤꯄꯨꯔꯒꯤ ꯐꯣꯂꯣ ꯇꯧꯔꯒ ꯇꯧꯋꯦꯕ ꯍꯥꯎ ꯑꯗꯨ ꯑꯣꯏꯇꯥꯔꯁꯨ Rajasthani have a language like they don't write anything on Rajasthani. They live on or speak only or mostly Hindi only. Adumai tawdana ngasai moyi marundi chawkhonaba tawde adu mi chawkhalakanda chawkhonabagi moyi chawkhatta yadena khanbadudi adugidudi akoi unfair means neba aduga finally aina toppa ma haningbadana akoi aise tak ja matam hendoksheba adu question hour ji okadana ngai ngamakdana kana toraga chak chabaje hore chak chabi mayai du tare ado aina haijaning badi akhoi kana je meeting je question hour je to the point hoina jeba question nangi ba mi ju adagi question answer pi du adu tadi every time every question ni wari adum lin lai tadi kana je mato akhoi mata management je akhoi khang dia ga chamana du male ki mot adu har galoshan nage thank you
Are you Bipin? Yeah.
Yeah, oza Guneswara chaka chabduda khatang aisu ma oza Guneswara ki point se yame aisu ngam haipet aine loina ka aina ngasai mu hai loina khanga tawbudi natte aduga aina sisda present tawjari sisu ai language particular script amagi particular language amagi mihut silaga ngang musum natte ba aina se tawjari sidi aina se tawjari sidi ko gi ma Manipurda lainari pa loan gi phibam se sikam phibam da lairi moyan hainer se kari ginno for example moina si da claim tawri se kari ginno adu to ki particular picture ama present present tawrapana to asiki laiba khoina hausi 2025 ta laiba manipuri loan gi picture se karamna hawakibage habidugi history ama ina yengbani kanji ai yamna ai amna humble be mo ma da bai ai na ngasai yam connecta khangna su ma tawsate ai ding sai mathangi point ta aisu ozana haibu maina
dai
I
dai
would
ge
brief
du tang deita aina adun thachauge aina hajabadi consistency woji habane khudamana color habaje english ta igera american igera ama ijeba adun tabida american ju isali adagi
no
kanoji
oza ai
uk
tam
gi ju
tam
isali adu tadi
ozana happy
phajade
point
dugi
to ai
wani
loina ai se note option jay ba ai tam na dum khumjarake tam
hoi hoi
adu dum leiredana ko ngsaigi ma ozanasu haibi bangsaigi ma aigi ming pronounce to bangam daba or aise kamaina mina aise kamaina yani receive to gadaki ga haidna pakhatpa si mayam singse khoi particularly Meitei community the yam chong lay ina because I quite chong but say
yes
one of the point amasu way I study ama way but na magi yam na chamba kenom lay keni ese machama sige sida mana hairam mi se aikoi na ngasi leiba akiba se si je kisu khena de lana hairam me akoi na hayeng wai 1940s adadi dam bane mai ese masa se koi na hayeng wai train tonga manipuri mapana chatpa matamda mina hindi ngang akoi na khumba ngamdri kamai tongni na sige adu man leiram ba akiba mayam sing se aikoi ngasi su adum leiba aina sige akiba se I'm not at all saying there's a high that loan ama tamba gi kana ba habis mapan na ide loan ama tamba habis na igi ꯑꯩꯒꯤ ꯃꯤꯠꯌꯦꯡ ꯑꯩꯒꯤ perspective ꯃꯌꯥꯝꯁꯦ ꯌꯥꯝ ꯆꯥꯎꯅ ꯎꯔꯝꯃꯦ. For example, easiest example ꯁꯦ ꯑꯩꯈꯣꯏꯅ ꯁꯤꯗ ꯁ꯭ꯅꯣꯒꯤ ꯋꯥꯔꯗꯁꯦ ꯑꯃꯈꯛꯇꯅꯤ ꯑꯗꯨꯕꯨ ꯀꯩꯅꯣꯝꯗꯗꯤ ꯁ꯭ꯅꯣ ꯇꯥꯕ ꯑꯃꯗꯗꯤ ꯁ꯭ꯅꯣꯒꯤ ꯋꯥꯔꯗꯁꯦ ꯃꯌꯥꯝ ꯂꯩꯌꯦꯕ. ꯑꯗꯨꯃꯥꯏꯅ ꯑꯩꯒꯤ my approach toward life, my approach toward world ꯁꯤ ꯃꯌꯥꯝꯁꯤꯡꯁꯦ ꯈꯦꯠꯅꯔꯛꯑꯦ. ꯑꯗꯨꯅ ꯂꯣꯟ ꯑꯃ ꯇꯝꯕ ꯍꯥꯏꯕꯁꯦ this is what we should try to understand. It increases our knowledge, it increases access to a different community. ꯑꯗꯨꯕꯨ ꯑꯩꯈꯣꯏꯅ ꯇꯝꯒꯗꯧꯔꯤꯕ ꯂꯣꯟꯁꯦ
ꯑꯝꯇ ꯍꯥꯏꯖꯒꯦ ꯃꯊꯪꯗꯨꯗ ꯑꯗꯨꯒꯤꯗꯨꯒ ꯂꯣꯏꯅꯅ ꯃꯤꯗꯨꯒꯤ ꯀꯟꯐꯤꯗꯦꯟꯁꯁꯨ ꯍꯦꯟꯒꯠꯂꯦꯕ ꯂꯦꯡꯒ꯭ꯋꯦꯖꯇꯨ ꯌꯥꯝ ꯈꯪ ꯇꯥꯔꯗꯤ ꯍꯥꯏꯕꯗꯤ ꯑꯦꯅꯤ ꯂꯦꯡꯒ꯭ꯋꯦꯖ ꯉꯥꯡꯉꯛꯄꯗꯣ ꯃꯥ ꯄꯔꯁꯤꯞ ꯇꯧꯕ ꯉꯝꯃꯕꯅꯤꯅ ꯍꯥꯎ ꯇꯨ ꯔꯦꯁꯄꯣꯟ ꯍꯥꯏꯕꯗꯨ ꯈꯪꯕ ꯉꯝꯃꯦꯕ ꯑꯗꯨ ꯅꯠꯇ ꯇꯥꯔꯗꯤ ꯉꯁꯥꯏꯒꯤ ꯃꯤ ꯑꯃꯗꯅ ꯍꯤꯟꯗꯤ ꯉꯥꯡꯖꯜꯀꯅꯤ ꯑꯩꯅ ꯈꯪꯕ ꯑꯋꯛ ꯇꯧꯗꯨꯅ ꯂꯩ ꯇꯥꯔꯗꯤ ꯃꯤꯗꯨꯅ ꯑꯩꯉꯣꯟꯗꯒꯤ ꯑꯦꯗꯚꯥꯟꯇꯦꯖ ꯃꯌꯥꯝ ꯂꯧꯈꯤꯗꯣꯏꯅꯦꯕ ꯑꯗꯨꯒꯨꯝꯕꯗꯨꯁꯨ ꯈꯟꯖꯟꯕꯅ ꯐꯩꯌꯦꯕ ꯃꯣꯏ ꯅꯝꯅ
ꯃꯥꯅꯤ
ꯍꯤꯟꯗꯤ
ꯃꯥꯅꯤ
ꯇꯝꯍꯜꯂꯦ
ꯑꯣꯖꯥꯅ
ꯑꯗꯨ ꯇꯧꯔꯦ
ꯍꯥꯏꯗꯤ
ꯍꯥꯏꯕꯗꯤ
ꯑꯣꯖꯥꯅ ꯍꯥꯏꯗꯤ
ꯅꯠꯇꯦꯕ
ꯌꯥꯝ ꯆꯨꯝꯃꯦ ꯑꯩ ꯈꯨꯝꯖꯔꯛꯀꯦꯕ ꯑꯗꯨꯗꯨꯅꯦ ꯑꯩꯅ ꯍꯥꯏꯔꯤꯁꯦ ꯂꯣꯟ ꯑꯃ ꯇꯝꯕ ꯃꯇꯝꯗ ꯑꯩ ꯀꯟꯐꯤꯗꯦꯟꯁ ꯂꯥꯛꯏ because if I speak English or Hindi ꯑꯩ ꯃꯄꯥꯟ ꯆꯠꯄ ꯃꯇꯝꯗ ꯑꯩ ꯃꯤ ꯀꯤꯗꯦ ꯈꯣꯠꯇꯦ ꯑꯗꯨꯒꯤ ꯄꯣꯏꯟ ꯃꯌꯥꯝꯁꯤꯡꯁꯦ ꯂꯩꯇꯕ ꯅꯠꯇꯦ ꯑꯩꯅ ꯁꯤꯗ ꯍꯥꯏꯖꯔꯤ ꯃꯌꯥꯝꯁꯦ ꯂꯣꯟ ꯇꯝꯕ ꯍꯥꯏꯕꯁꯤꯗꯤ we should always learn a new language. ꯑꯗꯨꯕꯨ ꯑꯩꯅ ꯁꯤꯒꯤꯁꯤꯗ ꯉꯁꯥꯏ ꯍꯥꯏꯖꯔꯤꯕ ꯂꯣꯟ ꯑꯃ ꯇꯝꯕꯒꯤ ꯉꯁꯥꯏ ꯍꯤꯟꯗꯤꯒꯤ ꯋꯥ ꯄꯨꯁꯜꯂꯛꯏꯕꯁꯤꯗꯤ ꯑꯁꯤ ꯋꯥꯁꯤꯅꯦ ꯑꯩꯈꯣꯏ ꯉꯁꯥꯏꯒꯤ ꯑꯩ ꯁꯤꯒꯨꯝꯕ ꯋꯥ ꯄꯨꯔꯛꯄ ꯃꯇꯝꯗ ꯋꯥꯈꯜ ꯄꯤꯛꯄꯒꯤ ꯄꯣꯏꯟ ꯑꯣꯐ ꯚ꯭ꯌꯨꯗꯒꯤ ꯌꯦꯡꯉꯒ ꯂꯣꯏꯅꯃꯛ ꯏꯟꯇꯔꯄ꯭ꯔꯤꯠ ꯇꯧꯗꯕꯤꯗ ꯑꯩꯈꯣꯏꯒꯤ ꯄ꯭ꯔꯦꯖꯦꯟꯠ ꯄꯣꯂꯤꯇꯤꯛꯁꯁꯦ ꯀꯔꯝꯕ ꯃꯑꯣꯡꯗ ꯄ꯭ꯂꯦ ꯑꯥꯎꯠ ꯇꯧꯕꯒꯦ ꯍꯥꯏꯕꯁꯤꯃ ꯈꯪꯃꯤꯟꯅꯕ ꯑꯃ ꯆꯪꯉꯦꯕ. ꯀꯩꯒꯤꯅꯣ ꯍꯥꯏꯕ ꯃꯇꯝꯗ ꯑꯩꯁꯨ ꯍꯤꯟꯗꯤ ꯉꯥꯡꯉꯤ ꯑꯩꯅ ꯉꯁꯥꯏ ꯍꯥꯏꯈꯤꯕꯗꯣ ꯑꯩ ꯍꯤꯟꯗꯤ ꯉꯥꯡꯉꯤ to certain extent I can communicate. ꯑꯗꯩꯗꯨꯗ ꯉꯁꯤ ꯃꯅꯤꯄꯨꯔꯗ different ꯑꯩꯈꯣꯏꯒꯤ non Manipuri mayam ama laaga mujhe thabak suba lae, but then they can perform, they can work in Manipur without knowing Manipuri. But then this is not the same case for me. I have to know the language that is spoken North India. Aduna ngasagi ma akhoi access to work and access to resource language sina determine tawreeba. Aduna ai ngasagi ꯑꯩꯈꯣꯏꯒꯤ ꯀꯩꯅꯣ ꯃꯅꯤꯄꯨꯔꯒꯨꯝꯕ ꯁꯤ ꯃꯌꯥꯝꯁꯤꯡꯁꯤꯗ ꯃꯣꯏꯅ ꯊꯕꯛ ꯁꯨ ꯂꯥꯛꯄ ꯃꯇꯝꯗ ꯑꯩꯒꯤ ꯌꯨꯝꯁꯦ ꯇꯞ ꯇꯞꯅ ꯂꯣꯏꯁꯤꯟꯕ ꯍꯧꯔꯛꯄꯁꯤꯗ ꯀꯩ ꯍꯥꯏ ꯃꯣꯏ ꯀꯝꯃꯨꯅꯤꯀꯦꯁꯟ ꯇꯧꯕ ꯃꯇꯝꯗ ꯑꯩ ꯃꯅꯤꯄꯨꯔꯤ ꯈꯪꯗꯦ ꯃꯣꯏ ꯇꯨꯃꯤꯟ ꯂꯩꯊꯣꯛꯈ꯭ꯔꯦ. So therefore in my ꯑꯩꯒ ꯃꯥꯒ ꯀꯟꯚꯔꯁꯦꯁꯟꯁꯦ ꯂꯥꯛꯅꯕ ꯍꯣꯠꯅꯔꯛꯄ ꯃꯇꯝꯗ effortꯁꯦ ꯑꯩꯉꯣꯟꯗ ꯑꯣꯏꯅ burdenꯁꯦ ꯑꯩꯉꯣꯟꯗ ꯑꯣꯏꯅ ꯂꯩꯌꯦꯕ. In order to communicate ꯃꯉꯣꯟꯗꯒꯤꯗꯤ attempt ꯇꯣ ꯂꯩꯇꯦ ꯍꯥꯏꯕꯅꯤ in order to communicate. And see say in a way ꯑꯩꯈꯣꯏꯒꯤ nation state formation sida sida system ama oina yaugre adugi point ne aina haise adugi politics tu dum khangaga khangjan biu aduduga ngasaki loan ama tamba haibidudi tamgadabani adudugi point am lay adu mathangi point ngasai ojagi ma yam sound pangida moments ki pot ma aina katang ajani clarify to buda grammar puti soyam suyai adu moment tharina season riba pot se mikup ki sense tane moment
exactly ꯑꯗꯨꯏꯗꯨꯕꯨꯅꯤ ꯑꯩꯅ ꯍꯥꯏꯖꯩꯁꯦ
ado kai edo
ꯍꯥꯏꯗꯤ
edo ojana
ꯃꯨꯚꯃꯦꯟ
ma
ꯍꯥꯏꯕꯗꯨꯅ ꯃꯤ ꯃꯌꯥꯝ ꯄꯨꯟꯅ ꯇꯧꯕꯗꯨꯅꯦꯕ ꯃꯣꯃꯦꯟ ꯍꯥꯏꯕꯗꯨꯅ ꯃꯤ ꯈꯔ ꯈꯛ ꯇꯧꯕ
ꯍꯣꯏ
ꯀꯩꯅꯣꯗꯨꯅꯦꯕ
ꯑꯗꯣ ꯑꯩꯅ ꯁꯤꯖꯤꯟꯅꯔꯤꯕ ꯋꯥꯍꯩꯅ ꯃꯨꯚꯃꯦꯟ ꯅꯠꯇꯦꯕ ꯃꯣꯃꯦꯟꯠ ꯍꯥꯏꯕꯗꯨꯅꯦꯕ
ꯍꯣꯏꯅꯦ ꯑꯗꯨ ꯈꯔ ꯃꯤꯛꯁ
ꯍꯣꯏ ꯑꯗꯣ
ꯇꯧꯋꯦꯕ
ꯑꯩꯈꯣꯏꯒꯤ
ꯑꯗꯨ ꯍꯤꯟꯗꯤ ꯑꯣꯏꯅ
ꯑꯩꯈꯣꯏꯗꯤ
ꯍꯥꯏꯖꯕꯅꯤ ꯑꯗꯣ
ꯅꯦꯇꯤꯚ
ꯑꯩꯅ
ꯏꯪꯂꯤꯁ
ꯂꯥꯜꯂꯗꯤ
ꯁ꯭ꯄꯤꯀꯔ
ꯁꯣꯔꯤ
ꯅꯦꯇꯤꯚ ꯏꯪꯂꯤꯁ ꯁ꯭ꯄꯤꯀꯔ ꯅꯠꯇꯕꯅꯤꯅ ꯍꯥꯏꯗꯤ ꯑꯣꯟꯊꯣꯛ ꯑꯣꯟꯁꯤꯟ ꯇꯧꯕꯗꯨꯗ ꯑꯩꯅꯁꯨ ꯀ꯭ꯂꯤꯌꯔ ꯑꯣꯏꯗꯕꯒꯤ ꯑꯣꯏꯔꯝꯅꯤ ꯑꯗꯨꯅ ꯑꯩꯅ ꯁꯤꯖꯤꯟꯅꯔꯤꯕꯗꯤ ꯃꯨꯚꯃꯦꯟ ꯍꯥꯏꯕ ꯅꯠꯇꯦ ꯃꯣꯃꯦꯟꯠ ꯃꯤꯀꯨꯞꯀꯤ ꯁꯦꯟꯁꯇ ꯍꯥꯏꯕꯅꯤ ꯑꯗꯨꯅ ꯃꯤꯀꯨꯞ ꯍꯥꯏꯕꯁꯦ ꯃꯥꯒꯤ ꯃꯤꯅꯤꯡꯁꯦ ꯑꯅꯤ ꯊꯣꯛꯅ ꯌꯦꯡꯕ ꯌꯥꯏ ꯉꯥꯏꯍꯥꯛꯇꯪ ꯑꯣꯏꯕ ꯑꯃ aduga momentki atopa meaning amna yamna important oiba ama ado aigi understand aigi point of entry dana yam maru oiba moment as a very important event adu gaidu da yengjaba adu ngasai gi meitai point yam ti yamna chumme ngasai gi ai mamang so hai ba meitai se mai ta da aisu wa da ngang de aware se oi hode ba da na thoki ba adubu aina officially natra kena submission tu magi mai irakuma tamdati ai mitai se adum sidi isagi ona seasonai adubu mi ame quote tawtara
ꯅꯠꯇꯦ
gadi mi
ꯑꯣꯖꯥ ꯑꯩ
seasonara madum seasonai
ꯑꯃꯨꯛꯀ ꯊꯣꯛꯆꯧꯒꯦꯕ ꯑꯩꯈꯣꯏ ꯀꯟꯁꯤꯁꯇꯦꯟꯁꯤ ꯑꯣꯏꯅꯕ ꯇꯧꯖꯦꯕ ꯃꯤꯇꯩ ꯑꯃꯨꯛ ꯍꯥꯏ
ho
ꯃꯩꯇꯩ ꯑꯃꯨꯛ
tausi
ꯍꯥꯏꯕ
tausi
ꯇꯧꯒꯨꯝꯁꯦ ꯑꯩ ꯏꯁꯥ ꯏꯇꯣꯝꯗ ꯇꯧꯒꯨꯝꯁꯦꯕ ꯃꯤ ꯑꯃꯅ ꯑꯇꯣꯞꯄ ꯑꯃꯅ ꯃꯤꯇꯩ ꯍꯥꯏꯗꯤ ꯍꯥꯏꯖꯅꯨ ꯑꯗꯨ ꯑꯣꯖꯥꯅ ꯃꯤꯇꯩ ꯑꯃꯨꯛ ꯍꯥꯏ ꯃꯩꯇꯩ ꯑꯃꯨꯛ ꯍꯥꯏꯗꯤ ꯇꯧꯕꯤꯒꯅꯣꯕ
hoi adune na sengdokchaise ai mathangdagidi adumaina tawwe adubu aina
ꯑꯩꯈꯣꯏꯒꯤ ꯀ꯭ꯋꯦꯁꯆꯟꯁꯦ ꯃꯈꯥ ꯁꯤ ꯃꯌꯥꯝ ꯂꯩꯔꯦ ꯑꯗꯣ ꯁꯤ ꯑꯣꯐ ꯗ ꯔꯦꯀꯣꯔꯗꯇ ꯑꯣꯖꯥ ꯑꯗꯨꯝ ꯈꯟꯅꯕꯤꯕ ꯑꯗꯨꯝ ꯌꯥꯔꯅꯤ ꯑꯩꯅ ꯈꯟꯕꯗ ꯑꯗꯣ ꯃꯇꯝꯗꯣ ꯊꯦꯡꯖꯜꯂꯛꯑꯕꯅꯤꯅ ꯑꯗꯣ ꯑꯩ ꯃꯈꯥ
ꯃꯈꯥ
ꯀ꯭ꯋꯦꯁꯆꯟ
ꯄꯤꯊꯒꯦ ꯃꯈꯥ ꯄꯤꯊꯒꯦ
ꯑꯩ ꯃꯈꯥ ꯆꯠꯊꯖꯔꯛꯀꯦ ꯃꯊꯪ ꯈꯣꯒꯦꯟ ꯀ꯭ꯋꯦꯁꯆꯟ ꯍꯪꯕꯤꯔꯣ ꯈꯣꯒꯦꯟ
Hoi,
Good evening, everyone. I might tabi ko.
Bye, loud and clear.
I Thongam Bipin adum address tong jage yam nuai ngasi ki talk se do.
Again,
Yeah, I know. Akwai je tension ga dam ne do aseng badi modern wall of Vietnamese in patience e loi wall ko ina ko je pung baru bo pham ga discuss to do point ngata ne ba. Yeah, I know, but I will cut it short. So Thongam Bipin gi research am interesting way with modern perspective tagi with open mindedness ko ina yam research to bi exam pa ado ai question ni yam leram bani do ai amatang khanga jaraga hangjarage aina khangning base tamona jung saidi hapet pan bigre but like akoi gi ariba manipur gi loan siga hojik anou bauji modern at this moment 2025 scenario loan siga yam tina drastic change ama ubase samna ga khongjom par but the scenario but the way they are akoi understand ga tawbangam daba what me am yause it's a gradual change in akoi consider to doera or is like there was something happen in between which made a sudden change. So how do you like the mona research to we matam the kamai na sigi pang ai mana itana thamjage.
Okay, again, I discuss the Louis item, politics for Yalta, Louis item, and I mean, I don't know where you are, the money, but look at the thing that Umbaro, Hamaga, discuss them say though. And now, Nangi point say, relevant to him. Sige, archaic Meiteilon the key, new Meiteilon say, come on, sige, shift say, come on, lock, you know, had sige questions they got. And one of the ways to look at it is, say mamang to pangiba, for example, pangiba those the can Hinduism say. Sagima papa where badigi baba where pa. Laypak is a laypak olakpa. The sanale haram the sanare olakpa. And sigumba may have been a voice of quick sounds it up. Yeah, lucky. In a pub, when Laka, say sound mapan the neighbor Laka, say. In a burger burger, the ning by PB1. Other girl the Laka doing it, cur the Laka doing it, the pum the Laka doing it, per I say. See, they when linguistically, you know, the way may am say, yaw day and have out. We archaic mate, we are as it is, when as a paramatum, the when a mark, we tribal may have the Meiteilon gang, we move the winner lay have, we are say. I don't know when I understand the woman music, I'm going to tribal way in a way Hindu wise to Hindu is sound, meow, Hindu is stone and yaw up in a thing like archaic Meiteilon, Adudo, Sweden. For example, Sanale Ima Lepak, Nung CP, Nung CP say Ima Lepak, Nung CP. Kadai have say does it the you want to neighbor Katai had neighbor Kadai have say Katai had a neighbor the does it turgi derivative form neighbor Yantar in Haisa when sound meam since the home am laugh because of that's one I do the money a minor day ying I'm limited knowledge I do the meam there and the other way Queen of Museum, authors may have the issue who may like I give recent examples again, no, he came standing to Zay, say, Saquang later. The Maggie Manipuri says the way Maggie subtitle Yao Yangam Devil. My standing to Zay, now, which got Nang Mam Pam, Ribber's Manipuri singer though. Come broke again.
Yes, I know.
The Maggie loans him when Nangari visited cannot in the past about 10 years. And see a woman and say Maggie one way to look at is Maggie writing style Maggie form that's number one. And they declare modern influence like but get you in another same another factor say with there different factors say like I think I don't see this one way to look at it.
Thank you so much. So I tend to have some supplement on Chang like the Akogi Tamona has a point for maybe that was one of the reasons. Suddenly say Akogi Hojik Kai the Poe, Nang Kai the Pokano, Kai no, Sinjamati have the Taina, Kori no Pum, Tava Kai the new sudden change. ꯉꯁꯥꯏꯒꯤ ꯇꯒ ꯄꯥꯒ ꯈꯤꯇꯪ sudden change ꯅꯠꯇꯕ even ꯑꯩꯈꯣꯏꯒꯤ ꯁꯤꯖꯤꯟꯅꯔꯤꯕ ꯋꯥꯔꯗꯁꯤꯐꯥꯎꯗ fully transform ꯂꯥꯛꯄꯒꯤ ꯄꯣꯠꯁꯦ ꯌꯥꯝꯅ ꯊꯣꯛꯄꯁꯤꯗ ꯁꯨꯝ ꯑꯩꯅ ꯈꯪꯖꯅꯤꯡꯗꯅ ꯁꯨꯝ
ꯍꯣꯏ ꯍꯣꯏ
ꯇꯥꯃꯣꯒꯤ
ꯆꯨꯝꯃꯦ
ꯔꯤꯁꯔꯁꯇ
ꯑꯩꯅ ꯁꯥꯎꯟ
ꯈꯪꯖꯕꯅꯦ
ꯈꯛꯇ
but
ꯄꯤꯕꯩ ꯋꯥꯅꯤ
yeah
ꯂꯣꯟꯗꯁꯨ ꯋꯥꯍꯩꯗꯁꯨ ꯑꯍꯣꯡꯕꯗꯤ ꯌꯥꯝ ꯂꯥꯛꯑꯕꯖꯥꯠꯅꯤ
yeah anyway we'll continue I think next time thank you so
yeah.
much
Thank you, Kopian. Matom saya sih kung mapan tasale adoy question saya Tamo Samarendra Milan sini ani saya lokot serge. Tamo Samarendra Habib.
Thank you, Romy. Thank you. Kano to Roy ay matam yam logya Roy. Kano je Oja Bipin, thank you. Kasi yam na may chum na ay question kay discussion ti mayam lay bine to Oja Bipin ne koy no ma je patna gyan ta na koy ungtang unabam daka tare kay na hay da sidi am na maru ba part ni na ko petela ba matam sida yaw roy do ba point mayam ma yaw le adu ay di question wa Roy was just ay sum khangjaning ba ka akoy gi Meiteilon se akogi Manipur ki keno se akoina ngangda gi bese atopa language habdi Hindi khangde Assamese khangde akoina hare lai moi mayam degi akoi sina advance we bese yam di oi ko akoina su aina sum khanjab da mayam ju loi khangi for example akoina Hindi da di akoi ki furit bulit la jo topi bulit la jo khongup tong la jo matlab juta pehna hai shirt pehna hai ama khaktani na moi na ngai akoi gi di loi na mak topi uppo khongup tongo moja upsal lo furit lit lo khongau chelo moi di one water loina loi gre to akoi gi word si di aduk ki matik so much akoi cha ba jo asam da ji kha khaw ha ga loi loina cha ju kha adum loina moi ama loi hai gre ko akoi di makhan makhan je yam yo to sigum ba se akoi gi comparative akoi gi Bipin sap na keno to da study ga to da keno ga akoi gi akoi khang da sum hang ko kai kai gi ba sum ba matang ji discuss to yo yaw gi ra sum
That's when I'm like, isn't there? I don't know the DM kind of young would raise a car. Loan support the concepts. Every loan is support lab. Adubu, Aquina, a quickie Mui Buggy history particular period. I loan up, I think in a subcutly having idea, every community the P giver. For example, Manipur, this inbuilt or a yellow, I get on a Manipur, it sounds awkwardly headed. Sina comment or game of national sense of nationalism, Paul Nabagi, Agi language, Ima with Nabagi, Ima in the Choba factor more with them. A quickie Manipuri Lona might Imano a quite softly have to say a queen and high name. Every community put them on the Moy loans a quite softly column whenever. Aduna, Sagi, Ozanama, Habi, Mozatum, Bagita, different ways of whom lady, but both mayams things, suppose memos of whom lay, I don't know, Simeams, Sini, have this minor. I quoted the hyper words, give what I say, Amakata never. Adubo, Sonata the Greenland, the Unawise, Kuntaruk never. Other than I give example to any one higher point, that's a big one at the car. Adokina, Sisima, Sumana Ying, Basiki, danger say, can like the nationalism say violent way. In my hill in a condom, Manipur, those who remains and say, in a hill in a convey name. Put my manner, with my manner, not any kind of target. Violence under all kinds of violence idea what can happen all kinds of violence hunter I don't know how manipulate violence and nationalism na push tawraga thok forms of violence never and violence may am sing say can self entitlement sense of nationalism sina hemak pa se check the hudra gadi when the Second World War Hitler gi potuju is a moina mahele can be neither. Adu can be mahuta can every loan we mayam the loan for the say magi environment to go. Luina hing bayang but create to sufficient of the language ni and kind of full loan ma high give that Meiteilon have a loan say insufficient of a loan not there. Mas insufficient of a loan with is happy matamda a quiz a biakan gi yard sector yin bagini high name. Basket beer and yard and being idea put it to hot of a loan we never. I don't know yard to change the one jang ever. Wow. Ozana high understand those understand the way, but even when it intonation ki port lai riba phau adu map sings ki loan khudi ma ki phajaba se ma ki mong da lai ba koi manipuri da di ba India da di Urdu hai se ma ki sereng ibada isai ibada pai phajaba loan ni ga na nu hainari ni no pa Urdu isai ke sereng ibo khotba matam da loan khudi ma sigi ma ki koi na phajaba di dum lai bjani na thamjai ga
Hoi hoi thank you adu akoi na sum khangning i na ko akoi gi adu yamna maru oi ba pot sing je akoi si expose to ba as a maite akoi daka tai si akoi gi as a expert akoi gi oja bp loina maut sin biraga si lai je ai gi world je khangan ba ma daka tai hai ba point je na puthok chaning se ko ai gi question na te je point na ba okay thank you
thank you Thomas Samarendra mathang Milan da lak se Milan hobi
Oja ahambada oja bipin yam marik chumna explanation mayam tawre aina hangchining is yam tiena num kan hangjarage mitai haiba wahi si kayam kuiraba wahi no mitai haise aduga aina hangjari kai gino haikanda takta su koi mitai gino se koi tamu raguni su paper rum kano mo phom gi bane aduda masai discussion da hari nako adubu mitai haiba sida yengak targati mai dingu habis aku puya ari puya ti dum lai rame adegi rong mai si aku masi aku naga ni ko aku naga ko tangkul ni ko rong mai kan habis mai habis meaning si ko people ne ko adu mai dingu habis aku meetingu gan di karigumba ari ba scripture amada da di phangdaba male ba aduna oja hoina research to bu matam da masagi kare ani si kyamu kuiraba mi tai haibase khoi methodologically kona semak pa khoi di laing thok kano gi khoi gi mi di yenga to gi haibagi to di methodology kona gi pon nin ko aduna hani irama ba language sai tare ko aduda mi tai haibase kyam kuirage si je khangjining ba tare
Laide yam lure di si khumbangam no di man mai ti kyam lure ge habi wa hai se mai to iso ba to khina ma ai di chap chap answer later pe ki kai ne historically ye
ai imane ba ma history di am kan na to ngok je ba thai
ai khangda ba ni
mana haibada mitai haiba wahai se ariba kano da leiram de haiba pot ama thamme aduga mai dingu mai haiba sidi akoi gi tona tinarga leiram ba akoi gi maru mapang sing akoi gi naga community da leiriba sing da se dum sinarami aduga akoi mai tai da sinarame ba aduga mai haiba sigi athaji da auto ahanbada fire bam leire aduga man people live ne ba aduna fire duga ngasa duga tadudagi thekthara aga kona mi na hakiba oigani na khalle na mana opinion thamme ba adu aina kamu go jaw ina mu research tok tar ga dinga jagi mitai je kanu puya adam da thibiraga karamba puya da kayam kuina gan dor ge masi adu dagi di mitai gi di kanu je akoi gi khenari bagi akoi ki yetnari je adu ri to kan dor kan ne ai sum khaje wali ko
ꯑꯣꯖꯥꯒꯤ ꯄꯣꯏꯟꯁꯦ ꯀꯌꯥꯝ ꯀꯨꯏꯔꯒꯦ ꯍꯥꯏꯕꯁꯤꯃ ꯈꯪꯗꯣꯛꯄ ꯍꯥꯏꯁꯦ ꯃꯔꯨ ꯑꯣꯏ ꯑꯗꯨꯕꯨ ꯑꯩꯗꯤ ꯈꯪꯗ꯭ꯔꯦ ꯌꯥꯝ ꯇꯁꯦꯡꯅ ꯌꯥꯝ ꯊꯤꯅ ꯑꯣꯄꯟꯂꯤ ꯑꯗꯨꯝ ꯍꯥꯏꯖꯩꯁꯤꯅꯦ ꯁꯤꯒꯤ ꯃꯇꯥꯡ ꯀꯌꯥꯝ ꯀꯨꯏꯔꯒꯦ ꯁꯤꯖꯤꯟꯅꯔꯛꯄ ꯍꯥꯏꯕꯁꯤꯃ ꯑꯩꯉꯣꯟꯗꯗꯤ ꯂꯩꯖꯗ꯭ꯔꯦ ꯑꯗꯨꯕꯨ ꯑꯩꯅ ꯄꯤꯅꯤꯡꯕ ꯄꯔꯁꯄꯦꯛꯇꯤꯞꯇꯤ ꯃꯩꯇꯩ ꯍꯥꯏꯕꯁꯦ ꯑꯩꯈꯣꯏꯅ ꯍꯤꯁꯇꯣꯔꯤꯀꯦꯜꯂꯤ ꯌꯦꯡꯕ ꯃꯇꯝꯗ ꯑꯩꯈꯣꯏꯒꯤ ꯁꯂꯥꯏ ꯇꯔꯦꯠꯃꯛ ꯂꯣꯏꯅꯃꯛ ꯑꯣꯏꯔꯝꯗꯦ ꯍꯥꯏꯕꯁꯤꯅ ꯑꯩꯈꯣꯏ ꯂꯣꯏꯅꯃꯛꯇꯤ ꯈꯪꯉꯤꯗꯅꯀꯣ it's a consolidation of different salaries, 7 yak salai mayam since ning and the Meitei had to say that it was different. It was a clan way of doing it. Seeding so clans the Tamtanga doing it. Adun Sikatana Hibangam by what was Kiddy Meitei Cam Kui the gay habisima. It's an Hibangam there, though Yingson get had in Sikidi.
pada question saya aroi boina amatang lokacage tuga patungda bagi program simulation bagi markai macam Vijendra M patungi question how biru yan Vijendra tabi ba Vijendra mic to amtang on to bi
hello tabi bra
ta
ano maktuda ko ngasigi wangang loi obiribro Thongam Bipin amadi yaubirba mayam puno ikai kunna buchari matamsu thengzale haibani ara khoi aina wai mani dang haijaraga wahang amakhtang hangjarake tawbani ngasai akhoi gi loan ji gi matang da loan ama haibasida mayek chakhulhanba loan du chakhulhanba adagi karam na ngangani haibna singba goi grammar byakaran go balonjan karmain tawne haibna singba mayam si loan yawre ina khanje linguist sing hen khangbiramani adugidi ara khoi loan gi baramda idi todong naina jaba misak natte adurasu sum akhoi gi loan si chakhona hona jaba tum thawa yaw jaba support taw jaba haibta ado akhoi maitai mitai gi matang sida su akhangai sing duna matam du da haibiriba 1982 3 gi mamang du da hanna hanna kayarak nomi fam fam matung gi yana 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 gibani ado matam du da influence taw bangamba adagi puya adagi kadai putore haiba ngamba mising na haiba dagi smain oirasi yana government gazette pongin oikhramnina koi inba tare hojiki oina adubu maitai mitai haiba banan khenaba matang sidadi hayangwai amuk aikhoina hojik haibiribido koi hojik mamang hangbibu dumai tawduna ariba puyam puthoroktana smaina seasonarami koi mai haiba fire seasonaba hairakpai matam adagi koi yot thang seasonarpa hairakpai matam sigumbagi wari su lai aduga mi si lonthai orambasu haiba yai ngasi aikoina lonthai na seasonaba sidi kan english tasu kana gumba amana ngangba ga amaga konthok manadabasu lairi aduga aina manipurda tajaba matamda ariba lon ngangba singa anuba ngangbaga maraksida lon wa akoi rin kangbiramani matamgi wasi ngang bayanaba ariba matamgi katai ta chalupa ke haibi mauta katai chaluba ge haibi yanaba adumaina lakhibani na evolution na koi loje masigi dilai khre aduka ariba londa da ngangba wahei kaya ngasai pai ma pukning haibasiga as wakal kamdori ge haibasiga amana na ore khara amana degi ka haibasiga hisabi ka haibasi hujikte as anuba mong ngang nare smaina olakpani lojai ado mitai mitai gi se akoina hojik changrabani for the time being adum mitai na adum iba consistently adum chatpasi kai sukai den khanjai mitai en oblique p resu p resu amatani na mathakta sentence am igraga sizina ningba matum chatlasu adum yabrin anuba ge amuk develop tawradi ge jeram thoga dum chung thoga irai lai ba poni sigidi adu mitai gi loan sidi mullaroi da mayek sidi mullaroi adu aina haijening ba wafama akoge matam amada nampuda tawkiba ngasai gi pamhibagi sarayambai wari kari mayam si lakpasina marmoidana akoge devanagari script amsung bengali gi influence na changkibadagi madu puthorok tan may kunchang thok wa pham lakre adigi adu mamangna may train pan gi lai adu hauji ki matam gi loan singang khanjai mayam du gi hannan mi phum tawkan adu masin ngang ba yana hotna adu nai khanjai adu hauji aina khangjening wafamdi loan si chawkhanaba manipur gi su manipuri Meiteilon language atra manipuri language chawkhanaba sel na singba ama hang ro khotan kan honari dictionary ina pa konaba ama adu amana aikoi haurik na hasing hairiba 1970s adwai de akoi school de lechari haitare aduga 83 dagi gazette phonga lakhibne na khoi sudum kona dum lakchare ado chawkhana hona bibasida akoi mai sel mek tasu schedule language oiraba mayek su script leichabasi yetna dana masi hapchen bangam dabani haibagi mawong su leiri aduga namdana akoi matam amada bengali na akoi si script silakpa adagi akoi gi culture attack tarba dharma sindoki ba loan bhau silakpa mayam jingsi amuktang reverse tawbai mawong da akoi gi meitei si amuk revival gi mawong da lakpa si lakpa sira aina gangjaning edi ꯑꯩꯈꯣꯏꯒꯤ ꯃꯌꯦꯛꯁꯤ ꯆꯥꯎꯈꯠꯅꯕ ꯍꯣꯠꯅꯕ ꯃꯇꯝꯗ ꯑꯩꯈꯣꯏꯒꯤ ꯍꯧꯔꯛꯂꯤꯕ ꯅꯍꯥꯁꯤꯡꯁꯤꯅ ꯃꯇꯝꯒꯤ ꯂꯣꯟ ꯑꯇꯩ ꯏꯪꯂꯤꯁ ꯍꯤꯟꯗꯤ ꯑꯃꯁꯨꯡ ꯑꯇꯣꯞꯄ ꯐꯣꯔꯦꯟ ꯂꯦꯡꯒ꯭ꯋꯦꯖꯁꯤꯡꯁꯤ ꯇꯝꯃꯨꯕꯗꯒꯤ ꯑꯩꯈꯣꯏꯒꯤ ꯃꯩꯇꯩꯂꯣꯟꯁꯤ ꯈꯪꯂꯛꯇꯕ ꯑꯩꯈꯣꯏ ꯑꯉꯥꯡ ꯑꯃꯗ ꯉꯁꯤ ꯀꯔꯤ ꯅꯨꯃꯤꯠꯅꯣ ꯍꯥꯏꯕꯗ ꯐ꯭ꯔꯥꯏꯗꯦꯅꯤ ꯍꯦꯛꯇ ꯍꯥꯏꯔꯛꯑꯦ ꯃꯥ ꯏꯔꯥꯏꯅꯦ ꯍꯥꯏꯗꯕ ꯄꯨꯡ ꯀꯌꯥ ꯇꯥꯔꯒꯦ 12 ꯕꯖꯦ 12 ꯇꯥꯔꯦ ꯍꯥꯏꯌꯦꯕꯀꯣ ꯄꯨꯡ 12 ꯇꯥꯔꯦ ꯑꯌꯨꯛꯀꯤ ꯅꯨꯡꯊꯤꯜꯒꯤ ꯍꯥꯏꯗꯦꯕ ꯑꯁꯨꯃꯥꯏꯅ ꯇꯧꯗꯅ ꯑꯉꯥꯡꯁꯤꯡꯁꯤꯗ ꯑꯩꯈꯣꯏ ꯏꯆꯥ ꯏꯁꯨ ꯍꯧꯔꯛꯏꯕꯁꯤꯡꯁꯤꯅ ꯃꯩꯇꯩꯂꯣꯟꯁꯤ ꯁꯨꯝ ꯀꯥꯎꯁꯜꯂꯛꯄ ꯃꯩꯇꯩꯂꯣꯟꯁꯤ aduga atopa londa ngangagadi moi sum hinagiba aduga loinana expert singnena leibiribisingnashu akoi Meiteilon gi thoram tawba matamdasu hindi english kumba yamni yalaga magi hai singba natraga magi knowledge gyan budhi loksing si phongdona bhonna bade kai hana sizinnarakpagi mawong sinasu akoi gi isagi lon si chamagi manungda 50% yokselakta haitare yankai yokselakta ba sizinnabai chang hainabi mo oigerba mising sida maramdi english te sum pagi hindi te sum pagi ba foreign language sum pagi te Meiteilon si kausalak pun bhonna bada ꯃꯗꯨꯒꯤ ꯑꯀꯣꯏꯕꯗ ꯂꯩꯕ ꯂꯣꯏꯅ ꯃꯌꯦꯛ ꯑꯗꯒꯤ ꯑꯃ ꯁꯦꯝꯒꯠ ꯁꯥꯒꯠꯄ ꯃꯗꯨꯗꯤ ꯆꯪꯉꯤ ꯍꯧꯖꯤꯛ MA ꯐꯥꯎ ꯇꯝꯕꯒꯤ ꯐꯤꯕꯝ ꯂꯥꯛꯑꯦ ꯈꯣꯠꯂꯦ ꯃꯌꯥꯝ ꯍꯥꯏꯕꯤꯔꯦꯀꯣ ꯀꯩꯁꯨ ꯇꯧꯔꯛꯑꯅꯤ ꯈꯔ ꯂꯩꯔꯒ ꯑꯗꯨꯅ ꯃꯩꯇꯩ ꯃꯇꯥꯡꯁꯤꯗꯤ ꯍꯧꯖꯤꯛꯀꯤ ꯐꯣꯔ ꯗ ꯇꯥꯏꯃꯤꯡ ꯒꯣꯔꯃꯦꯟꯅ ꯌꯥꯅꯕꯁꯤ ꯑꯗꯨꯝ ꯆꯠꯂꯕ ꯑꯗꯨꯒ ꯑꯩꯈꯣꯏꯅ ꯆꯥꯎꯈꯠꯅꯕ ꯍꯣꯠꯅꯕ ꯑꯗꯨꯒ ꯃꯁꯤꯒꯤ ꯃꯌꯦꯛꯁꯤꯒꯤ ꯆꯥꯎꯈꯠꯅꯕ ꯍꯣꯠꯅꯕꯗ ꯑꯩꯈꯣꯏ ꯁꯔꯀꯥꯔꯒꯤ ꯑꯣꯏꯕ ꯑꯗꯨꯒ ꯑꯣꯖꯥꯁꯤꯡꯅ ꯑꯗꯨꯝ ꯃꯄꯥꯟꯗ ꯑꯣꯏꯔꯁꯨ ꯑꯃꯁꯨ ꯐꯪꯕꯤꯕꯗ ꯑꯩꯈꯣꯏ ꯀꯔꯤ ꯇꯧꯍꯟꯅꯤꯡꯕ ꯂꯩꯕꯤꯕꯒꯦ ꯀꯔꯤ ꯇꯧꯔꯒꯗꯤ ꯈꯔ ꯍꯦꯟꯅ ꯊꯨꯅ ꯆꯥꯎꯈꯠꯄ ꯌꯥꯒꯗꯒꯦ ꯑꯩꯈꯣꯏꯒꯤꯁꯦ ꯁꯤꯅꯤ ꯑꯩꯒꯤ ꯋꯥꯍꯪꯁꯦ ꯑꯔꯣꯏꯕꯒꯤꯁꯤ
again I'm lura da question se da khoi sai kyo zagi question se policy gi level da labni na khoina ma loan se sidagi da na ba chakhat na ba kari to da ge have the question na khoina khoina hoji hoji khoi ma pheni modern world sida ꯂꯩꯔꯤꯕ ꯃꯌꯥꯝꯁꯤꯡꯁꯦ for example ꯑꯩꯒꯤ ꯌꯨꯝꯁꯤꯗ ꯉꯥꯡꯅꯔꯤꯕ ꯂꯣꯟ ꯃꯌꯥꯝꯁꯤꯡꯁꯦ ꯑꯩꯒꯤ ꯂꯣꯟ ꯈꯛꯇꯪ ꯑꯣꯏꯔꯛꯇ꯭ꯔꯦꯕ because ꯑꯩ ꯑꯉꯥꯡꯗꯣ ꯍꯦꯛ ꯄꯣꯛꯄꯒ ꯐꯣꯟꯗꯣ ꯄꯥꯏꯔꯕꯅꯤꯅ ꯃꯥꯁꯦ ꯏꯪꯂꯤꯁꯀꯤ ꯚꯤꯗꯤꯑꯣ ꯌꯦꯡꯕ ꯍꯤꯟꯗꯤꯒꯤ ꯌꯦꯡꯕ ꯑꯁꯤ ꯃꯌꯥꯝꯁꯤꯡꯁꯤꯅ ꯍꯦꯟꯅ ꯅꯝꯅꯔꯦ ꯑꯩꯈꯣꯏꯒꯤ ꯃꯣꯗꯔꯟ ꯋꯥꯔꯜꯒꯤ ꯔꯤꯌꯦꯂꯤꯇꯤ ꯑꯃꯅꯦ ꯁꯤꯁꯦ ꯑꯗꯨꯅ ꯑꯩꯒꯤ ꯃꯆꯥ ꯑꯃ ꯑꯗꯨꯝ ꯑꯦꯁꯦ ꯃꯆꯥ ꯑꯃ ꯑꯗꯨꯝ ꯏꯖꯕ ꯁꯤꯅ ꯑꯉꯥꯡ ꯃꯌꯥꯝꯁꯤꯡꯁꯤꯅ ꯍꯤꯟꯗꯤꯒꯨꯝꯕ ꯏꯪꯂꯤꯁꯀꯨꯝꯕ ꯌꯥꯝ ꯉꯥꯡꯉꯛꯄ ꯃꯇꯝꯁꯤꯗ ꯑꯩꯈꯣꯏ ꯃꯃꯥ ꯃꯄꯥ ꯌꯥꯝ ꯍꯔꯥꯎꯖꯕꯁꯨ ꯑꯗꯨꯝ ꯂꯩꯌꯦꯕ ꯑꯩ ꯏꯆꯥ ꯅꯨꯄꯥꯗꯣ ꯏꯪꯂꯤꯁ ꯌꯥꯝ ꯉꯥꯡꯉꯦ ꯑꯗꯨꯒ ꯍꯤꯟꯗꯤ ꯌꯥꯝ ꯉꯥꯡꯉꯦ ꯑꯗꯨꯃꯥꯏꯅ ꯕ꯭ꯔꯦꯡ ꯉꯥꯡꯉꯤ ꯀꯥꯏꯅ ꯁꯤ ꯃꯌꯥꯝꯁꯤꯡꯁꯦ is modern reality ꯑꯗꯣ ꯁꯤ ꯃꯌꯥꯝꯁꯦ ꯑꯩꯈꯣꯏꯅ ꯔꯦꯁꯤꯁ ꯇꯧꯒꯦ ꯍꯥꯏꯕꯁꯤꯅꯦ ꯀꯃꯥꯏꯅ ꯉꯥꯛꯊꯣꯛꯀꯗꯒꯦ ꯑꯩꯈꯣꯏꯒꯤ ꯂꯣꯟꯁꯦ ꯃꯥꯡꯗꯅ ꯀꯃꯥꯏꯅ ꯇꯧꯒꯗꯒꯦ ꯍꯥꯏꯕꯁꯦ ꯌꯥꯝꯅ ꯃꯔꯨꯑꯣꯏꯕ ꯄꯣꯏꯟꯠ ꯑꯃ ꯑꯣꯏꯔꯦ ꯑꯗꯨꯅ ꯁꯤꯁꯤꯗꯤ ꯑꯩꯈꯣꯏꯅ ꯄꯔꯁꯣꯅꯦꯜ ꯂꯦꯚꯦꯜꯒꯤ ꯄꯣꯠꯇꯨꯃꯁꯨ ꯑꯩꯈꯣꯏꯒꯤ as much as possible ꯑꯩꯒꯤ ꯂꯣꯟꯁꯦ ꯉꯥꯡꯅꯕ ꯍꯣꯠꯅꯕꯒꯤ ꯃꯊꯛꯇ ꯒꯚꯔꯟꯃꯦꯟꯠꯅ ꯄꯣꯂꯤꯁꯤ ꯑꯃ ꯑꯣꯏꯅ ꯁꯦꯝꯕ ꯀꯣ ꯑꯁꯤꯒꯨꯝꯕ ꯑꯃꯁꯨ ꯑꯩꯈꯣꯏꯅ ꯃꯊꯧ ꯇꯥꯕ꯭ꯔꯥꯅ ꯈꯜꯂꯦ ꯑꯩꯈꯣꯏꯅ for example ꯑꯩꯈꯣꯏꯒꯤ ꯑꯉꯥꯡ ꯃꯌꯥꯝꯅ ꯌꯦꯡꯉꯤꯕ ꯄꯤꯛꯇ ꯄꯤꯛꯏꯕ ꯑꯉꯥꯡ ꯃꯌꯥꯝꯁꯤꯡꯁꯤꯅ ꯌꯦꯡꯉꯤꯕ ꯚꯤꯗꯤꯑꯣꯁ ꯃꯌꯥꯝꯁꯤꯡꯁꯤꯒ ꯂꯥꯟꯊꯦꯡꯅꯕ ꯉꯝꯅꯅꯕ ꯄꯣꯂꯤꯁꯤ ꯂꯦꯚꯦꯜꯗ ꯃꯅꯤꯄꯨꯔꯒꯤ ꯃꯁꯤ ꯊꯣꯛꯇꯕꯕꯨꯗꯤ ꯅꯠꯇꯦꯀꯣ ꯑꯗꯨꯒ ꯄꯣꯂꯤꯁꯤ ꯂꯦꯚꯦꯜꯗ ꯒꯚꯔꯟꯃꯦꯟꯠꯅ ꯑꯩꯈꯣꯏ ꯈꯨꯠ ꯆꯪꯁꯤꯟꯕꯤꯔꯒ ꯃꯅꯤꯄꯨꯔꯒꯤ ꯑꯉꯥꯡ ꯃꯆꯥ ꯃꯌꯥꯝꯁꯤꯡꯁꯤꯅ ꯌꯦꯡꯗꯅꯕ ꯃꯩꯇꯩꯂꯣꯟꯒꯤ ꯚꯤꯗꯤꯑꯣ ꯃꯌꯥꯝꯁꯤꯡꯁꯦ ꯈꯤꯇꯪ ꯏꯟꯇꯔꯦꯁꯇꯤꯡ ꯑꯣꯏꯕ ꯁꯨꯝꯕ ꯃꯌꯥꯝ ꯑꯃ ꯌꯦꯡꯉꯛ ꯇꯥꯔꯒꯗꯤ ꯑꯩꯈꯣꯏꯒꯤ ꯂꯣꯟꯁꯤꯁꯨ ꯑꯗꯨꯝ ꯑꯗꯨꯃꯥꯏꯅ ꯈꯤꯇꯪ ꯑꯩꯈꯣꯏꯅ ꯄꯥꯈꯠꯂꯤꯕꯁꯦ ꯈꯤꯇꯪ ꯐꯒꯗ꯭ꯔꯥꯅ ꯈꯜꯂꯦ ꯑꯗꯩꯗꯤ ꯑꯩꯅ ꯑꯉꯥꯡ ꯃꯌꯥꯝꯁꯤꯡ ꯌꯥꯝ ꯇꯣꯏꯅ ꯍꯥꯏꯕꯗ ꯑꯩꯈꯣꯏꯒꯤ ꯃꯅꯤꯄꯨꯔꯤ ꯂꯣꯟꯁꯦ ꯑꯩꯈꯣꯏꯅ ꯐꯖꯒꯦ ꯍꯥꯏ ꯇꯥꯔꯒꯗꯤ ꯂꯥꯏꯔꯤꯛ ꯌꯥꯝ ꯄꯥꯕ ꯃꯅꯤꯄꯨꯔꯤ ꯂꯥꯏꯔꯤꯛ ꯄꯥꯕ ꯑꯦꯟ ꯑꯣꯜ ꯏꯟꯗꯤꯌꯥ ꯔꯦꯗꯤꯑꯣꯁꯦ ꯇꯥꯕ ꯍꯧꯖꯤꯛꯀꯥꯟꯗꯤ ꯑꯣꯜ ꯏꯟꯗꯤꯌꯥ ꯔꯦꯗꯤꯑꯣꯁꯦ ꯇꯥꯗ꯭ꯔꯦꯕ ꯑꯩꯈꯣꯏꯅ ꯉꯥꯡꯖꯔꯤꯕ ꯃꯅꯤꯄꯨꯔꯤ ꯂꯣꯟ ꯈꯔꯁꯤ ꯈꯤꯇꯪ ꯐꯖꯕ ꯅꯠꯇ꯭ꯔꯒ ꯆꯠꯅꯕ ꯌꯥꯕ ꯑꯃ ꯑꯣꯏꯇꯥꯔꯒꯗꯤ ꯃꯣꯁ ꯑꯣꯐ ꯗ ꯇꯥꯏꯝ ꯑꯩꯈꯣꯏ ꯑꯣꯜ ꯏꯟꯗꯤꯌꯥ ꯔꯦꯗꯤꯑꯣꯁꯦ ꯇꯥꯔꯒꯅꯦ ꯑꯩꯈꯣꯏ ꯐꯔꯛꯏꯁꯦ ꯑꯦꯟ ꯑꯩꯈꯣꯏꯅ ꯇꯝꯃꯛꯏꯕ ꯂꯥꯏꯔꯤꯛ ꯈꯔꯗꯣ ꯑꯗꯨꯕꯨ ꯍꯧꯖꯤꯛꯀꯥꯟ ꯑꯉꯥꯡ ꯃꯌꯥꯝꯁꯤꯡꯁꯦ ꯑꯣꯜ ꯏꯟꯗꯤꯌꯥ ꯔꯦꯗꯤꯑꯣ ꯇꯥꯗ꯭ꯔꯕꯅꯦꯕ ꯑꯩꯈꯣꯏꯅ ꯑꯉꯥꯡ ꯑꯣꯏꯔꯤꯉꯩꯗ ꯃꯅꯤ ꯃꯂꯥꯒꯤ ꯆꯤꯊꯤ ꯄꯥꯎꯈꯨꯝ ꯀꯥꯏꯅ ꯂꯩꯔꯤꯁꯦ ꯃꯅꯤ ꯃꯂꯥꯒꯤ ꯆꯤꯊꯤ ꯄꯥꯎꯈꯨꯝꯁꯤꯗ ꯃꯣꯏꯅ ꯉꯥꯡꯅꯔꯤꯕ ꯂꯣꯟ ꯃꯌꯥꯝꯁꯤꯡꯁꯦ ꯑꯩꯈꯣꯏ ꯀꯅꯥꯝꯇꯅ ꯉꯥꯡ ꯉꯝꯗꯦꯕ ꯑꯗꯨꯕꯨ ꯐꯖꯕꯗꯨꯗꯤ ꯑꯗꯨꯗꯨꯅꯦ ꯃꯅꯤꯄꯨꯔꯤ ꯂꯣꯟꯒꯤ ꯐꯖꯕꯗꯤ ꯑꯗꯨꯗꯨꯅꯦꯕ ꯑꯗꯨꯅ ꯑꯁꯤꯒꯨꯝꯕ ꯃꯌꯥꯝꯁꯦ ꯄꯣꯂꯤꯁꯤ ꯂꯦꯚꯦꯜꯗ ꯈꯤꯇꯪ ꯏꯟꯀꯔꯦꯖ ꯇꯧꯕꯤ ꯇꯥꯔꯒꯗꯤ ꯑꯩꯈꯣꯏꯅ ꯄꯥꯈꯠꯂꯤꯕ ꯃꯌꯥꯝꯁꯦ ꯈꯤꯇꯪ ꯐꯒꯗꯧꯗꯤ ꯃꯥꯜꯂꯦ ꯑꯗꯣ ꯑꯩꯈꯣꯏꯅ ꯉꯥꯡꯉꯤꯕ ꯃꯤ ꯃꯌꯥꯝꯁꯤꯅꯁꯨ ꯈꯤꯇꯪ ꯀॉन्शियस ꯑꯣꯏꯔꯒ ꯉꯥꯡꯅꯕ ꯍꯣꯠꯅꯕ ꯑꯗꯣ ꯌꯥꯝ ꯀꯟꯅꯗꯤ ꯑꯗꯨꯒꯤ ꯑꯟꯁꯔꯗꯤ ꯑꯩꯉꯣꯟꯗꯗꯤ ꯂꯩꯇ꯭ꯔꯦ
Thank you.
ꯑꯗꯣ ꯑꯩ ꯁꯄ꯭ꯂꯤꯃꯦꯟꯇꯤ ꯇꯧꯖꯩ ꯑꯣꯖꯥ ꯇꯦꯟꯇꯛꯅ ꯍꯧꯖꯤꯛꯁꯤ ꯑꯩꯈꯣꯏꯅ ꯑꯇꯣꯞꯄ ꯂꯣꯟ ꯃꯔꯨꯑꯣꯏꯅ ꯏꯪꯂꯤꯁꯀ ꯍꯤꯟꯗꯤꯒ ꯑꯗꯨꯒ ꯐꯣꯔꯦꯟ ꯂꯦꯡꯒ꯭ꯋꯦꯖ ꯇꯝꯕ ꯀꯥꯡꯕꯨꯅ ꯑꯇꯩꯁꯨ ꯍꯩꯔꯦꯀꯣ ꯑꯗꯩ ꯕꯦꯡꯒꯣꯂꯤ ꯁꯥꯎꯠ ꯏꯟꯗꯤꯌꯥꯒꯤ ꯂꯣꯟ ꯑꯇꯩ ꯍꯩꯕꯁꯨ ꯃꯌꯥꯝ ꯂꯩꯔꯦ ꯑꯗꯣ ꯑꯩꯈꯣꯏꯅ ꯑꯩꯈꯣꯏꯒꯤ ꯇꯤꯚꯤ ꯆꯦꯅꯦꯜꯁꯤꯡ ꯄ꯭ꯔꯥꯏꯚꯦꯠꯀꯤꯗꯁꯨ ꯑꯗꯨ ꯃꯉꯥꯏ ꯑꯣꯜ ꯏꯟꯗꯤꯌꯥ ꯔꯦꯗꯤꯑꯣꯗꯁꯨ ꯑꯗꯨꯝꯉꯥꯏ ꯑꯗꯨꯒ ꯑꯩꯈꯣꯏꯁꯨ ꯃꯅꯤꯄꯨꯔꯒꯤꯁꯨ ꯍꯥꯏꯔꯁꯨ ꯗꯨꯔꯗꯔꯁꯟ ꯀꯦꯟꯗ꯭ꯔ ꯏꯝꯐꯥꯜꯕꯨ ꯍꯥꯏꯔꯁꯨ ꯃꯁꯤꯗ ꯄꯥꯎ ꯄꯥꯕ ꯑꯅꯧꯕ ꯅꯨꯄꯥ ꯃꯆꯥꯁꯤꯡ ꯅꯨꯄꯤ ꯃꯆꯥꯁꯤꯡ ꯃꯌꯥꯝ ꯑꯃ ꯈꯣꯟꯖꯦꯜ ꯐꯖꯕ ꯃꯁꯛ ꯐꯖꯕ ꯑꯗꯨꯝ ꯌꯦꯡꯕ ꯅꯨꯡꯉꯥꯏꯕ ꯃꯌꯥꯝ ꯑꯃ ꯄꯥꯎ ꯄꯤꯔꯤ ꯑꯗꯨꯗ ꯑꯩꯈꯣꯏꯁꯦ ꯑꯩꯅ ꯁꯨꯝ ꯇꯥꯖꯕ ꯃꯇꯝꯗ ꯑꯇꯩ ꯃꯇꯝꯗꯁꯨ ꯗꯤꯄꯥꯔꯠꯃꯦꯟꯒꯤ ꯑꯣꯏꯕ ꯐꯪꯁꯟꯒꯨꯝꯕ ꯇꯧꯔꯛꯄ ꯃꯇꯝꯗꯁꯨ ꯑꯇꯣꯞꯄ ꯂꯣꯟꯁꯤꯁꯨ ꯂꯥꯟꯅ ꯁꯤꯖꯤꯟꯅꯕꯁꯨ ꯃꯌꯥꯝ ꯌꯥꯎꯔꯤ ꯃꯔꯝꯗꯤ ꯆꯦꯛꯁꯤꯟꯗꯕ ꯍꯥꯏꯇꯥꯔꯦ ꯑꯌꯥꯝꯕ ꯃꯇꯝꯗ ꯑꯩꯅ ꯉꯁꯤ ꯐꯥꯎꯕ ꯑꯩꯁꯨ ꯆꯍꯤ 30 ꯍꯦꯟꯅ ꯊꯕꯛ ꯇꯧꯖꯔꯦ ꯑꯗꯨ ꯑꯩꯅ ꯊꯦꯡꯅꯕꯁꯦ ꯗꯦꯜꯂꯤꯗꯁꯨ ꯏꯝꯐꯥꯜꯗꯁꯨ ꯀꯜꯀꯇꯥꯗꯁꯨ observation of World AIDS Day ꯍꯥꯏꯅ ꯏꯌꯦꯕ ꯍꯥꯏꯕꯗꯤ IAS ꯑꯣꯐꯤꯁꯥꯔꯒ ꯃꯌꯥꯝ ꯌꯥꯎꯔꯝꯅꯤꯀꯣ ꯂꯦꯡꯒ꯭ꯋꯦꯖ ꯌꯥꯎꯔꯝꯃꯅꯤ ꯃꯗꯨꯗ PhD ꯍꯣꯜꯗꯔ ꯃꯌꯥꯝ ꯌꯥꯎꯔꯦ ꯑꯗꯒꯤ ꯗꯥꯏꯔꯦꯛꯇꯔ IAS ꯑꯣꯐꯤꯁꯥꯔ ꯑꯗꯨ ꯑꯣꯕꯖꯥꯔꯕꯦꯁꯟꯒ ꯑꯣꯕꯖꯥꯔꯕꯦꯟꯁꯀ ꯈꯦꯠꯅꯕ ꯈꯪꯗꯅ ꯌꯥꯝ ꯍꯧꯖꯤꯛꯐꯥꯎ 2025 ꯐꯥꯎꯅꯤꯀꯣ ꯏꯔꯤꯁꯦ ꯏꯪꯂꯤꯁꯅ ꯂꯥꯛꯄꯤꯔꯝꯕꯗꯤ ꯀꯨꯏꯔꯦ ꯑꯩꯈꯣꯏꯗ ꯑꯗꯨ ꯁꯨꯃꯥꯏꯅ ꯑꯇꯣꯞꯄ ꯂꯣꯟꯗꯤ ꯌꯥꯝ ꯈꯪꯉꯕ ꯌꯥꯝꯅ ꯀꯟꯐꯤꯗꯦꯟꯁ ꯂꯩꯅ ꯉꯥꯡꯉꯦ ꯃꯁꯥꯁꯦ ꯑꯗꯨꯕꯨ ꯒ꯭ꯔꯥꯃꯥꯔꯁꯤ ꯑꯇꯣꯞꯄ ꯂꯣꯟ ꯃꯥꯅ ꯐꯅꯌꯥꯝ ꯍꯩꯔꯤꯗꯣ ꯆꯨꯝꯅ ꯁꯤꯖꯤꯟꯅꯗꯕ ꯑꯃ ꯃꯊꯪꯗ ꯑꯩꯈꯣꯏ ꯏꯁꯥꯒꯤ ꯂꯣꯟꯁꯤ ꯉꯥꯡꯕ ꯃꯇꯝꯗ khudam oina ina aten do sentence am haijar matam da nipa aduna gari huran badu han na bagi damakta sensil ai haibisida huran baduna gari huran badu fan na bagi damakta nipa du sensil ai haibisiga ani si khenay nipa aduna gari huran badu hairam nina han bada kari la ke bun nipa aduna gari huran batare ba aduga kondangda machet amadula aduna akoigi grammar english study akoi tamme adu meiteron ngang bu matam dadi one tena ngang adegi lyric ama phongdokre haiba misle amitabh bachchan haiba misle lyric ama phongdokre haigedra lyric ama phongdokre haigedra hai sigumba anem awang si isagi lon phau phajana ngang ba ngamdaba mi yam leidi sine aina haije ariba mida amasung anoba nahasing thol ibu sidasu adana koi yam tonal language oiba lon oiba sida koi si arubam su edu ngasai ki lon makal makha ngang ba ya bazu mayam len haibi kreko yum marju sangai hairesu adigi sak si habibi agadra look habibi agadra hai si mayang amnadi sak chaba yaradra hai di khangba singba mayam mokoi atai lon su urdu su kai mayam le koi lon su yam ina kuli de hai adu sayozan habi camera je koi leram dani khangde radio si upu khong bi hai bi ya do bra habi gumba chemistry ki physics ki wahai mayam le koi ni puthok nataba koi da lejeram dab si koi su pai lete adubu madu manaba absurd oiba nataba di kai su hanbada di kai su kai di adu television hai di mi hindi ki di moina radio ki di moi lei re telephone television si doordarshan kain hairaga fajabo idum ningre adigi ming thon bada lam ming thon bada dorse koina hoji masam si alex adu da christiani ming adigi yamna ota ba ming am thonari den ko smain modernize tor koi mom dilai asi tawna su amuk ai koi gi thaina gi fajaba ming mayam sing sidi koi da yamna fajadaba oina choron das hairaga di yam fajaba manba hindi hairaga se aduga koi gi Meiteilon hadog es adugo ming thon bhawnati ka haiba simbasi attitude amasu develop tawre haitare koi na sing marakta aduna moi mi ga manadana mohona bada mi ga manadaba maming bhau thoningakpa adagi moi gi wakhalon si masai moi gi exposure si koi international lo intorokpanina asong influence yam changjalakpa ado masin marmoidna koi gi loan si chakotpare su kitang tindabra in khali aduna ai motadi isagi loan si phajana khangi makai aikoina atop loan su tamam tamda live heli aduga aina isagi loan phajana ngang bang ngami bas main atop loan su ngang ba iba ngamba taragadi he nai koi simi na su sitpa degi koi magul leba adugumba leba macha sing citizen sing oine na khanje ngasi king su tengna tanja kitang phangjab jam nungai jai sigumba koi oja sobindro hin kaina sinbi re program sa i sanging adum yaujai adu aikoina field set lagi chelu kholu ngam dabnina wakhalon share to bokol pa du mayamna afaba tabiru mayam sing je matam khudimakta ai am thaga sai yam ngai thank you
mayambu si yawi mayambu hanana thaga chari oza bipin amasung yamna koigi active oiba ngasi session se yamna interactive and big dama koigi yawi audience mayam thaga chari adu koi topic amada discussion to debate to have the koigi pung khara da loison me yabna te aduna discussion will always continue and I hope I think we mathang tarak padasu wisum bagi discuss to bagi hai ba koigi language script particularly Meiteilon gi matanga opportunity la kirgine ne khali amuchu pinsara su high opportunities amu matang future support naba honagani asi hairaga mayam pagi ngasi talk session si question bagi from the yore aduna do pada ina sagi program se formally close to naba agi again the for things hibinaba invite program.
Thank you, Thamoromi. Ngasigi vote of thanks, everyone. Once again, very good evening. Thank you, le. I ngasai intro to hold I giving Koken. The way National Institute of Oceanography da Goa da I scientist when laser. Ngasigi talks I have a script ama vote of thanks in about Shemzay Boko. The minor talks are yam scripted or we can say palms. Yam I see topics are interesting way, but I heart to give in Manipulum Haizage, Nasigi, we can guest speaker in LinkedIn Biriba, Thongam Bipin address talks again. Thank you so much. I really appreciate your ongoing research. I'm not modern way and then with open mindedness in the side I give up. ꯑꯩꯈꯣꯏꯒꯤ ꯀꯩꯝꯇ ꯀꯩꯅꯣ ꯂꯩꯇꯕꯤꯗ ꯌꯥꯝꯅ ꯐ꯭ꯔꯤ ꯀꯩꯅꯣꯗ ꯔꯤꯁꯔꯁ ꯇꯧꯕꯤꯕꯁꯦ ꯏꯠꯁ ꯚꯦꯔꯤ ꯌꯨꯅꯤꯛ ꯑꯗꯨꯒ ꯄ꯭ꯂꯤꯖ ꯀꯟꯇꯤꯅ꯭ꯌꯨ and please try to come up with a lot of information. Yeah, insightful, Roy. Thank you so much for joining us. You have been here with us with 2.5 hours without any complaint. So Sima, I thamjage aduga next aigi president oibiriba Tamuranjan Mumbai da leirambadagi Kolkata ra chatkibidagi Tamuranjan je tok manung da koks yam hotle pungju yam yingi. And I know he has a lot of questions, but he has given us free hand. Mayam the opportunity PB haitare. Came the ngang the within a side to yam warm welcome in the say. Thank you so much, Tamuranjan. And I hope you'll have a very nice stay at Kolkata. And then coming to our moderator, Tamuromi, it's a very challenging task to moderate such kind of online activities. Physically, when a presentation to July, the technical issues and there are a lot of questions, and he has to maintain the time and also respect the audiences. But he did this thing very seamlessly, and I really appreciate Tamoromi. Melody, thank you so much for bringing us and let us engage with Thongam Bipin. And thank you so much for your brief introduction. And last but not the least, Tamora Gumuni, behind the screen, the Yamna Chenja Chongjava, Vice President Moina, Toxibu Yamna widespread Oinava, Kan Honazaba Mini, Tamora Gumuni, question, the Am Kanahang beating a sisu, but I know him. Thank you so much, Tamora Gumuni, and Ogi manager, Mr. Heramani. So see why Jekar Haizaraga and all the audiences from all over the country. But thank you so much for joining us and for all your beautiful questions and engaging. I'm not emotional about topic I think but so you lastly,
lastly, Pimsagi ma'am, thank you for inviting me to do this.